Good morning, those of you who are coming in. We will just hang on for a few minutes as our audience starts to log in. Um, so just hang on a few minutes, about 4, and we'll get started. Also, those of you who are coming in, it would be nice if you could just let us know via chat that the sound is okay, that you see the screen, and if you want, you can also introduce yourself. Good morning to the new attendees who are joining us. As I said just a few minutes ago, we're just waiting for everyone to get settled in and to check that they can see the screen, that they can hear me. And I've been told that I should maybe speak up a little bit. So I'll try to do that. And yeah, we'll get started in about a minute here. All right, it is 9 o'clock, so we can get started here. So once again, welcome, good morning. I hope that you are settled in and ready for another HR Networks web conference. It is one of our international series, or European at least, series, and it is called European Human Resources, HR Software and Recruiting. And we are here from 9 o'clock, which is now, until about 12:15. We've got some exciting content to share with you, and I hope you will enjoy it. So once again, this is an HR Networks web conference, but it comes in with the support of several partners and sponsors. And you can see these at the bottom of my screen here. We've got a few of them, and I will mention them in just a few moments here. And those of you who are just joining us, feel free to use the chat to let us know um, if you can hear okay, if you can see everything, and we will try to fix any issues if they may arise. Now, um, let me go on to introduce myself. Those of you who have attended our previous international web conferences, you have maybe met me. My name is Anna Anderson, and I am an international key account manager at Business Leads, and I usually moderate the international conferences. You can reach out to me to let me know how the webco went, to tell me how you think we could improve it. I really look forward to any feedback that we might get, because after all, the goal is to make this a good web conference for you, to make it useful and enjoyable, hopefully. So to get us started here, I found this interesting cartoon which says that these employees are tired of being on the cutting edge of technology. Apparently, that cutting edge place is a very dangerous place. Now, I have a feeling that this is not just the case with technology in HR or anywhere else, but any kind of new developments, new approaches. Sometimes we have to jump into it without really knowing how to approach it, and then we end up like these people here. So to prevent that from happening, we have this web conference where you can learn some useful tips and hopefully avoid this situation. Now, I've mentioned two names so far. I've mentioned HR Networks and Business Leads. Um, these are both our brands, and you'll notice some other ones associated with us. So if I say that this is a job clipper web conference, it is still us, HRM Leads, Business Leads, HR Networks. We are all a network of sister companies. And among our speakers, we are proud that we have quite a number of HR service providers who can share some very valuable insights into how to deal with the changes that have been happening. And you can see some of these names here, but certainly this is just a fraction of the people that come to share their expertise in our web conferences. Now, to start kind of getting to know you, I would like to start a poll that will ask you about your role at the company. Um, so tell us what you do. Are you HR staff? Are you a service provider? Are you in some other department that is not HR? Are you in the leadership or management or the board? Or does your function, or is it something else? And we'll give you a few more seconds just to see. And typically our web conferences are primarily visited by HR professionals, which is not to say that somebody outside of HR could not benefit from this. Definitely some valuable information even for those who are not there in HR. So I think that it's safe to end the poll and see how what the results say. And the results say that 69% of you are HR professionals. And yeah, that sounds about right. Pretty standard for our web conferences. And I've got 31% of you are HR service providers, 15% are other. If you care to, please share in the chat what this other is. We've got an equal 8 and 8% of non-HR departments, and then 8% of CEOs or managing directors. All right, so let us move on about our program here. So as I've mentioned, we've got a program from 9 o'clock to 12:15. We're going to have 4 presentations presented by 4 speakers from 4 different companies. And our audience so far includes people from Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, India, Namibia, the Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Ukraine, and the UK. I believe that this is the first time that I'm seeing some of these countries in our web conference, and I'm very excited about that. I hope to truly make it international where, of course, if we can cross the time zones, we can meet here and learn from each other. Also, hopefully soon, I look forward to some web conferences that will be happening later in the day, exactly because of this time zone issue, so that more of you or more people from around the world can join in this live event. But of course, afterwards, it's also possible to watch the webco on our channel. I will also be posting it on our website, so if somebody slept in today, they'll have a chance to see it. And what we have on the agenda for today, right now you have me speaking here, and I will be done very soon here with the organizational stuff. And the next speaker comes from HR Tech Valley, and he will be talking about how to recruit career owners. And then after that, we will have a speaker from Sage talking about people marketing and how to provide the perfect candidate experience, and then also how to make that into a perfect employee experience. After that, we've got Camille, 5 reasons why employees love video recruiting. And finally, Smart Recruiters, talking about artificial intelligence and will it reduce recruiting bias? Now, as I mentioned this video recruiting, I realized that I haven't mentioned to you that normally I like to say hello to you via webcam. Today, it's a little bit different because I'm using a different computer here. And unfortunately, that one does not have a webcam. But video is a very powerful way to make today's virtual world a little bit more real, to realize that we're not robots, we're people talking to each other. So next time, I'll say hello. I'll make sure to say hello via webcam. And of course, at the end of the program, I'll just jump in very quickly and greet you all again and just kind of share some closing notes. I will be quick at the end, I promise. Now, if you're having any technical issues, particularly with the sound, there are a few things that you should check first before you say, no, this is not working. First, check the volume setting on your computer. Then maybe if that doesn't work, log out and log back in. Just use that confirmation email that you got with the link, and you'll be right back in. And also you can join via phone in that email that you received as confirmation, you received the phone number and an access code. That connection is very stable and the sound is typically very good. And then if none of these is working out, please let us know via chat, and we'll try to help you as best as we can. This webco is live and it's being recorded. The purpose of that is so that we can provide you with this content afterwards, so that if you're not able to listen to every single of today's presentations, even though I hope you will, so that you have somewhere to go and watch them again. And it's not always easy to take in 4 contentful presentations, so it's nice to be able to revisit. The webco will be on our HRM Leads channel. It's our YouTube channel, and I will be sending you an email after this webco giving you all of this information. You can also see it in the chat here, so no worries, you don't have to write it down now. And same thing with the website, where you will find the other content. So all the presentations that we can publish will be there. Anything that we are allowed to publish, you will find on our website. And like I said, I will share that with you via email, but it's also in the chat. And our sponsors and partners, there are quite a few of them who support our web conferences. And today we have Aunda, we have Indeed, we have the Space Coach Academy, it's Job Clipper, which is one of our own brands, Text Kernel, Business Leads, of course, GoToWebinar, HireBase, and Crosswater Job Guide. Thank you for all of our sponsors and partners for supporting these web conferences. If you see after this web conference that maybe you would like to contribute with your expertise to the community and hold a presentation, please get in touch with me. Or if you want to sponsor a webco, again, please get in touch with me, and I will share my email with you. Again, you will be receiving something from me, or you can use this international address, international@businessleads.net, and I will get back to you. If you just want more information about presenting, I will get that to you. And I believe that we are almost ready for our first speaker. So we've got about a minute to get to that. And our first speaker will be, like I said, HR Tech Valley's Jochen Bessemans. And
that's correct.
Sorry if I'm, yeah, sorry for my pronunciation here.
No problem.
International web codes. I should really learn to speak all the languages so that I can pronounce this correctly. I'll try. I'll work on that. And you will be telling us about how to recruit career owners. So
Yeah.
in any second now, we will change the screen to you, and
Okay.
I will let you introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about HR Tech Valley and what you do, and yeah, let's get started with that.
Okay, so now you can see me. I'll start by introducing myself visually, so everything is okay. And so you know that I'm not a robot, as Emma said. Well, my name is Jochen Bessemans. I'm the community manager at HR Tech Valley, which is a non-profit bringing together HR tech companies, HR people, HR service providers, because we believe that you need to create synergy to create the future of HR. And there's a lot of evolution within HR through digitalization, through technology, but also through what's happening on a societal level, and especially also with people and individuals. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, just to give a bit of insights on hiring people who we have coined as career owners, and I will dive into that in a bit. I'm going to switch off my camera now because the last time it was a bit difficult with the bandwidth. So before we go into this topic of how to recruit career owners, I would first like to know how difficult do you find it to find talent? Because there's a lot of things that you hear. Some have a lot of issues, others say, well, it's easy for me to select. So just tell me, do you find it difficult to find talent? If that's yes for most of your job openings, or yes for just a minority, or if you don't have any problems finding talents, just let me know via the poll.
Okay, we'll let the poll run for a little bit here until the majority have voted. And what do you think the result will say?
Well, my guess would be that most people are finding it increasingly difficult to find talent. So I'm curious if I'm right.
All right. So let's see. Let's close the poll. I think that we can do that. And we see actually that it's difficult for a minority of our job openings. 73% say that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually have nobody who said no, which is expectable. And 27% say yes for most of our job openings.
Okay. Well, it's something that you notice a lot because a couple of years ago we had this economic recess, economic crisis, and people were looking for new jobs or staying in their jobs. And now the mobility in the job market is increasing. And what you notice is, and what I hear from the recruiters I know, is that, well, they're saying these talents, A, it's more difficult to find them. B, if you can find them, they're very demanding. And it's, well, there was a time when whenever you opened a job, you had 70, 80, sometimes even over 100 people applying. Nowadays, it might even be difficult to convince 7 or 8 people to apply for your job. So it has become harder to get talent. What we also notice is that in the situation where you had over 100 people applying for a job, it was the talent saying, well, pick me, pick me, pick me. And now we're seeing that you're entering this age where it's the companies who are saying, well, we want you, you're the best talent, pick us, pick us. And they're all emphasizing a lot via employer branding, via their marketing. They're sometimes even promising heaven to those talents. And if you look at this from a perspective, then we have evolved from a labor market in which all the power was with the companies, with the employers. They had the job, they had the salary, they had the company car, and they had the privilege of picking the talents they wanted. And now you're in a situation where this has become a much more fluid continuum. There are a lot of jobs for which it has become increasingly difficult to find the best talents. Take, for example, people in IT and developing of software, just to name one, but there are numerous job openings where you see that people with specific skills are high in demand, but low in supply. So it has become a more different, more fluid continuum. So first I want to look at what's driving this force, and especially what's making it more difficult to convince talent. And one thing that we must realize is we are consumers, and we are consumers 24/7. For some reason or the other, we tend to forget that during working hours employees, individuals, we still behave as consumers. And when I say behaving as consumers, I mean that we want things to be efficient, be transparent, happen very quickly at our terms, and for some reason or the other, we think that if you're in an organization, you don't need that much transparency. You will do whatever you're being told to do. Well, that's in a way conflicting with our consumer behavior. And because of this consumer behavior, it's also consumers who think, well, who want to be in control. If you order something online, or if you go into a shop and are looking for something to buy, you expect the seller to approach you with respect, with dignity, to listen to your needs, to help you find the solution you're looking for, the product you're looking for. If you get it, you want to be served very well. And we see that especially when you're buying online. If you buy something online at this moment, well, before you even close down the online shop you're in, you want to have received an email telling you, well, congrats, you've bought this product. And this is the process that you can expect. This is when we will be shipping it. This is when you can expect it to arrive at your home, etc., etc. We want this transparency. And that's because also technology is enabling that. Another example, and I know people talk a lot about Uber, but if you look at Uber comparing it to a normal taxi company, if you order a taxi from a normal company, well, first thing you do is you have to look for a number, you dial the number, you phone the company, they tell you, well, we'll be sending a cab over. You don't know who's coming, you don't know what kind of car, you don't know how long you will exactly have to wait. You're not even sure what it will cost you. You know that you will need to have money at hand to give to the driver. And with Uber, before you even say, well, I want this cab, you know what it will cost you, you know who your driver will be, you know what type of car it will be in, you know how long it will take for you to wait for the taxi you get in. You don't have to say anything. You dropped off at your location. You don't have to pay anything. And you can say, well, I like this driver, yes or no. And that's what technology is doing. It's giving us the control of whatever we are doing. And the same is happening not just with products or services we buy, it's also happening with our careers. And in a way, that's very logical, because if you're taking a taxi, that's 10 minutes, half an hour of your time. If you're booking a holiday online, well, that's 2-3 weeks a year if you're lucky. And our careers, that's something that takes up 38, 40 hours a week. So if it's that time consuming and that important in our lives, then it's not more than normal that we want to take control of that as well. And technology is helping us in that. And because of this taking control and this consumerization of the way we approach a job, we at HR Tech Valley came up with this term career owner, because people are owning their career more and more and more. And if you look at this from an employer perspective, well, everybody's talking about human resource, but the human resource is the fastest changing resource that we have. And at the same time, it's the most important, most differentiating resource that any company has. Because even if you have automated a lot of things, it's still people that truly make the difference, that truly give that added value, that personal touch, that something extra. And you will always need people in order to run a company. But these people are living in a world where they can find information wherever they want it, and that has an impact on you. If, for example, somebody goes to you as an HR or comes to you for recruiting, they know what their rights are because they've Googled them. They know, if you're in an international company, they know what you've been doing abroad because they've read it online somewhere, when they did a bit of research when they come to talk to you, or whenever. And this means that In this current day and age, knowledge is no longer a differentiator. We don't live anymore in the times of the Egyptians or in the medievals, where the CEO, the pharaoh, the king, he could do whatever he liked, and people just did it. They didn't have any other choice. But now they know what they can do. They know how to find each other. They know how to become a force, a united force, without even having unions. And if you look at something else, that's, well, we're also much more aware of what we're doing. And we try to capture this much. When we went to the moon in the late 60s, early 70s, well, that was a very enduring journey. And at the moon, we took about 5 pictures. Now, well, we take less exciting journeys and we take a lot more pictures. And people in HR, you know this pyramid, the Maslow pyramid, and we tend to focus on the bottom half of this, on safety and the psychological necessities that we have. But if you look at the age of self, where we are sharing whatever we're doing continuously, where we want to promote ourselves continuously, then you're at the top of this pyramid. And this is where this consumerization is also happening. We want to have a career that helps us realize who we want to be, the image that we want to create, or the life that we want to have. And that's much more than just the basic needs. And because we love to share a lot of things, we do this with traveling, or even when you go out to a restaurant, we write reviews. And, well, you write reviews on your experiences. And if you look at the experience of candidates, and I know that the next speaker is going to go on about this and how to create a good candidate experience. But these are results of surveys held in Belgium over the last couple of months. And I don't think that they are much different from what you'll experience in other countries. But if you look at the left side of the screen, these are the results of a survey on how do they experience the entire application process. And a lot of people, 1 in 3, don't get any feedback on their on the efforts that they made by applying. And we tend to forget that that's quite an effort, because you have to update your curriculum, you're writing a motivational letter, and if you're serious about applying, then you don't write this in 2 minutes time. It's a process that will take you at least an hour. And if you don't get any reply, you don't like it. What they also notice is that people don't even like the way they're communicated to or spoken to. And when it comes to feedback, and this is not about being rejected when you apply, but it's about what kind of feedback do you get. And for example, if you're rejected, we often see that people complain about the fact that they get this generic reply that could have been about anybody, and that makes them wonder, did they even truly look at my curriculum? Did they really consider my application or not? And 2 out of 3 is really negative about this feedback. And what's even more what's even more arousing is the fact, or what should worry you, is that, and this is this consumerization kicking in, if they don't like the way they've been treated, candidates are much more likely that they will reject your company as well. They don't want anything to do with you. As it says here, 50%, over 50% of the people that participated in this survey, which was about 2,000 people, they say, well, because of this lack of courtesy in this application process, I don't want anything to do with this company anymore. And there is this basic rule in communications that says, well, if we have something positive, we share it on average with 3 people. If we experience something negative, we share it on average with 11 people. So here you see what the impact is of a negative candidate experience during the application process. But if we take a closer look at the application process, and these are the results that you see on the right, is that people feel that there are way too many stages in any application process. And there has been Dutch research done at the beginning of last year, end of the year before, that stated that on average, the days talent standing out, so the time between the contact with the person that is getting a contract and the signing of the contract is on average over 90 days. So that's over 3 months. And as the survey shows, 1 out of 3 experience no proactive communication, meaning that when they apply and when they get a reply, they don't have a clue on how long the process will take, when they can expect which are the stages, steps in the process, who they are going to see, etc., etc. And because of the length and the lack of proactive communication, 85% of the people in the survey said, well, I'm just quitting the process and I'm going for the employer of my second choice. I want a job and I don't want to wait over 3 months. And if you think about this negative candidate experience and the fact that we love to share things, then you must realize that this has a very huge impact on organizations, on your employer branding, on finding your talents. In the US, you have Glassdoor, which is a review site, a TripAdvisor for companies, and they're currently mostly focused in the US, but according to the rumors I've been hearing is that they're going IPO, so going to the stock market in the second half of the year. And if you look at the numbers that you're seeing on your screen now, I'm very convinced that they will raise a lot of money. If you compare it to Snapchat and Twitter, they didn't have these kind of impact results and they raise a lot of money. But if Glassdoor raises a lot of money, they will start expanding globally, for one, but at the same time, you also see that job sites like, for example, Stepstone, or even on Google, that you start to find reviews on companies. But there was this research done on Glassdoor last year. In the first half of the year, these results were published in the summer. And 92% of the people in the US looking for a job say that they find employer reviews very important. And they even rely on them more than on what they see on company websites or on company publications of products. And what's even more important is that these reviews are part of their decision-making process. 47% of millennials decline a job offer because of one bad review. At a managerial level, it's 43%. And even non-management candidates, 17% just reject because of negative reviews. And that brings me to the point of, well, employer branding. It's something that has become very hot and a must-do over the last couple of years. And in a way, I do believe in employer branding, but it's not a solution. Employer branding is packaging what's there. If the package doesn't match what's there, then you're delivering a negative experience, and that will cost you dearly if you remember the results I showed you just a couple of seconds ago. So before we go on, I would like to ask you a next question, which is, which of these factors is your biggest challenge? Is this the consumer behavior you notice with candidates or with your own staff? Is it the fact that the people you're trying to attack, the talents you're working with, have become so much more informed? Is it the candidate experience that you're delivering or that they have experienced that you feel an impact of? Or are there other factors which are your biggest challenge in recruiting talent at this moment? The other you can specify via the chat, I think, isn't it, Anna?
Actually, the poll is running right now, and
okay.
People are already answering, and we will give them a couple more seconds until we get as many answers as we can, or at least most of them.
Yeah.
And I see that one of the answers is really taking the lead. And maybe 2-3 seconds, and we'll close the poll. Okay, I think we can close it now and see. So the results say that impact of candidate experience is 67%, followed by consumer behavior. And then this info is everywhere. Actually, I'm a little surprised by that. 20%, and then other 13%. And then audience members, if you would please write in the chat, it would be interesting to know what these other factors are. All right, maybe this will happen at some point during the presentation. Okay. We'll just let the audience say that, and then later, if you get in touch, these can be discussed.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So this was a bit about why this shift is happening. So now let's have a look at what do you need to take in mind when you're recruiting these career owners. Well, first of all, let me start off by talking about the monkey experiment. I don't know if any of you know it, but this was an experiment, if I'm not mistaken, that was conducted in Germany some decades ago, in which they put about 5 monkeys in a cage. At the center of the cage was a ladder, and on top of the ladder were a bunch of bananas. So what does a monkey do if it sees bananas? It wants to grab them. And as soon as a monkey started climbing the ladder, the guys doing the experiment started spraying these monkeys with ice cold water. And monkeys don't like that. So whenever another monkey tried to climb the ladder to grab a banana and they were sprayed, well, the others started to get aggressive and they started beating up the monkey that tried to grab the banana. And at that time, the people doing the experiment took out one monkey and brought in another one who didn't know that he was going to be sprayed with cold water when he grabbed the banana. So the first thing the monkey did was reach for the ladder and go for the bananas. But the other monkeys jumped in, started beating him up. And so the experimenters took out another monkey that had been sprayed and inserted another one. And at the end, there were no monkeys in the cage anymore that had ever experienced the cold water. But none of them dared to climb the stairs, and if any monkey tried to do that, they beat him up. And none of them even knew why they were doing this. And in a way, that's also how we're recruiting. At some moment in time, we started asking people for curriculums, asking people to send in motivational letters, started drawing up job descriptions. And actually, we're still doing it, and we don't even know why we're doing it at this moment. We don't even know anymore why we have so many 2-3 talks with people, interviews with people before we make a decision. We don't know why we are recruiting the way we are recruiting. And that's important because if you look at the societal changes, and I've talked about these with consumerization, then this needs a different approach. And if you want to be recruiting career owners, and if you want to stand out, then it's all about creating your own recruiting experience and stop doing what everybody else is doing. Stop being one of these monkeys. Just create your journey that will give your candidate an experience that he or she will remember, and an experience that fits whatever you are doing and whatever your company stands for. And to create such an experience, you must first understand your career owner. And that's not just the people you're going to hire, but also the people in your company. There's a lot going on about cultural matching, about corporate values, and so on and so forth at this moment. But too often, in my experience, these are, well, let's say, strategic business decisions taken at a higher level and don't necessarily reflect the true DNA of your company. But if you know where there are two sides to this story. On the one hand, you have the business side where you need to know where your company is going and what you want to do to be a profitable business. On the other hand, you need to understand the people in your business and how they participate, add value, make contribution to the realization of these results, of this company growth, of this profitability. And you need to be able to map what's there and what's missing. And you need to be able to understand that if you bring somebody in, what will the impact be on the team and on profitability, on the realization of company goals. So understand your career owner, understand who you have at this moment, and understand who you need to complement what you have. And the employer branding aspect I talked about a couple of minutes ago. Well, it's too often that we're promising rose gardens, but what they experience isn't as shiny and as smelly and as nice to be in as what they might have expected. And to me, it's all about being honest, about managing expectations. It's one thing to attract people by promising them a rose garden. Then you will attract people who want a rose garden, who flourish in a rose garden, who, well, need a rose garden. If you're being honest and you're telling people, well, what we're offering you is just a proper garden with a nice lawn with no roses, then you will attract people who love to have a nice lawn where they can play football on, have a nice sit in the sun, I don't know, but then you'll attract the right people. So I think the employer branding aspect is focused on attracting a large quantity of people, while you should be focusing on how to attract the right quality of people. So make your promises true, which also means, of course, don't sell a lie. If you can't offer the same perks as your competitor, be honest. If you know that a process will take 6 months in your company, be honest. If you know that somebody will become part of a team where they have a very dictatorial boss who will tell them what to do and they need to do it exactly in that way, be honest about it. Don't try to convince somebody because you see that that's a huge talent that could do so much more. If it doesn't fit within the team that you're going to bring them into, then you're not only going to waste the talent, but you're also going to harm your company, because that talent will feel very much disrespected and will start talking about it, which will convince other people not to apply at your company. And at the same time, we also need to be realistic about what we're going to do, who we want to hire, who we need to hire. And I know this is a bit of cliche, but we always have this tendency of looking for top talent, A players, Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, the Black Swan, whatever you want to call them. Somebody who has to be able to perform so many tricks that we need to be aware that it's an illusion. You will never fit a square peg in a round hole. But that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's also because of the way that we mostly come up with job descriptions. We're looking for a job description as well. We need somebody to do this work, and well, you also have this and this, and so that's more or less near enough to be part of that person's job description. So we're going to look for somebody who can do that. We're looking for somebody who is excellent at writing texts, for example, at providing content, at analyzing, but at the same time, they have to be very good at speaking to a large public, have to be very outspoken, and so on and so forth, while maybe most people who are good at writing content are rather introvert people who don't like to be in front of an audience. And I think it's also, when you're creating that experience, that application, that job experience, be transparent. It's much in line with don't sell a lie. It's much in line with live up to the employer branding, but it's being transparent about what you're doing and why you're maybe even judging them in a certain way. It's about being transparent at the beginning of the recruitment process, that it will take so many stages where it will have to see this and this and this, and where you're going to look at these and these and these aspects. It's about when you reject somebody, giving them feedback that they can work with. It's not, well, you just don't fit the job description, or well, we had candidates that scored better on this and that and that. I think transparency would be, okay, we had 70 people or 20 people applying, 14 of them scored 80% on this, you scored 70%. So that's why we decided not to go on with your candidacy. Because that's not only transparency that people as consumers require, but it's also giving them something to work with. If you know that if you aspire a certain job and you get the feedback that other people applying for that job are better in these aspects, then you know, well, if I really want this type of job, then I need to work on myself. Then I need to educate myself on this aspect and improve. Give people things that they can work with. And the last thing in creating that journey is meet the people where they are. And by this I mean, we often do, again, like the monkeys do, we post job ads. We put them on Monster, we put them on Indeed, we put them wherever. Well, maybe the people you're looking for aren't on Indeed. So this also starts with understanding your career owners. Know where they are and try to meet them there, because again, from this consumer mindset, we don't really like to look for things. We want to be found. We like ads that are directed at our personal needs, that are personalized. We skip commercials on TV because they're just, that's food for the masses. We're individuals, we're not the masses. And it's the same with when you're trying to convince them to come and work for you. Just go where they are, try to meet them. And at the end of the day, and that's about the conclusion for my talk, and then we can go into a couple of Q&As. Realize that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Create your own experience. And yes, you can look at what other companies are doing and get inspired by them. You can look at what, for example, Unilever is doing, where they're using a lot of technologies to automate their application process to shorten it. You apply online, you do tests online. If you go through the tests and you reach a certain degree, then you get a video interview. If that's to satisfaction of the recruiters, then you're invited for a real life experience at the office where you go into the job for about a day. You can also look at, for example, what Heineken has been doing a couple of years ago, and which they made into a couple of nice videos that you can find on YouTube, where they made this very fun application interview where people experience crazy stuff. And at the end of the day, the guy who was selected was invited to a Champions League final to go on the pitch and be one of the people who are waving this big flag of the soccer ball at the center of the pitch. And then the stadium speaker announced, well, congrats, you've got the job. That's nice to see, and that's nice employer branding, but creating your own experience can be as simple as, well, the way you give feedback. The fact that maybe in the first interview, you get people from the team in to see if there's a connection between the candidate and these people. It can be whatever fits the DNA of your company and whatever can create the right connection you need to hire the right talent, to convince the right talent. Not just by giving a big company car or a high salary, but by these intrinsic motivational stuff, by, well, the people things. So that's where I want to leave you at. Hope this presentation gave you a couple of insights on what's happening and how you can deal with them and how to take them in and use them to create that experience that really reflects your company and that will really attract the right people, the right talents. Over to you, Anna.
All right, thank you for that. I think that once again we have the situation where one presentation is going to lead very nicely into the next one, because the next presentation will be discussing exactly this, the candidate experience, and again then the employee experience. But for now, let's see if the audience has any questions about your presentation. We've got about 9 minutes to use for questions, so or it doesn't have to be a question, it could be a comment. Discuss anything from the presentation. So let me see if anything has come in. All right, so here's one of the questions. And it says, isn't career ownership limited to millennials?
Well, I think if you look around, personally, I'm not much of a believer in dividing people into different generations, because it mostly boils down to, well, the younger people are using more technology and are more tech savvy and have different values than older people. Well, I, I don't agree. I think we're all consumers. Um, Up until 50, 55, we're buying stuff online. We're getting used to the fact that things are very transparent and we want it even more. I'm almost 42 myself. There are differences with millennials between me and them. But if I look at the expectations I have and they have, they're quite the same. We want things to be transparent, to be efficient, to be effective, and we want things to happen in a performant way. We don't want any unnecessary steps. Time is precious for everybody. So I think we're all consumers, so career ownership is not just something of millennials, it's something of every individual who's serious about their lives.
And would you say that this includes also the older generations who are about to complete their time in the workforce as well?
I think, well, to me, the line is somewhere, the frontier is somewhere at 55-ish. Because, okay, this is a bit, let's say that you can't say every 55-year-old is the same, but most people of 55 have had 30 plus years of working experience and they're looking forward to retiring. While most people of 40 now realize that they will still have to work for at least 27, 28 years. So it's a difference in perspective. And it's also the 55-year-olds have this tendency of having worked mostly for one company. So they have explored a lot of what was possible within the company, while younger people tend to change change employers much more often. So they have this broader scale of what they try to do and want to do, and it's like consuming. They're more consuming their careers than somebody who has worked for one company their entire career. So I think that you can say up until 50, 55, we are consumers, and then it starts to mellow down, I think.
All right. And I've just seen, as you were answering that, I've just noticed a comment from an audience member who is thanking you for the presentation and says that she totally agrees with you and shares her experience in Germany, saying that most of the companies have not really understood this trend, which is very sad. And also, she says that it can be hard to I'm sorry, I just moved this. It can be very difficult to find the right job, and then also
Mm-hmm.
more difficult for moms who would like to continue their career, but maybe in a part-time option.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I think
it's
I'm not a
it's
strong believer in job descriptions anymore. I think we should start looking at skill sets needed to make sure an organization can perform certain tasks, and that you should look at people who can bring together these skill sets. And if you look at this from a company perspective, about a month ago, I did this workshop with some 20 plus HR managers. Um, and what I noticed was there was a lot of talk about, well, it's us versus them. And then all of a sudden, one of them said, well, is it us versus them, us employers versus the employees, the candidates? It's about we're all individuals. And actually, if we are looking at what we want, what we desire, what we need, and we take that perspective, then we better understand how we can connect with candidates, with employers, with employees. And I think that's the tipping point. If we all start realizing that career owners is something that we all are, then we can start looking for solutions that can benefit any career owner and the company. And if you're a working mom, then, well, if you start taking that perspective and you can make arrangements on how you can still contribute with your skill set to what the organization needs to be profitable, needs to be performing, um, well, then you can find a solution. If you stay in this mindset of us versus them, you need to fit a job description, which means that you need to be in the office from 9 till 5:30, then we won't get anywhere. And then, well, then you will be in this war for talent like forever. If you start taking this more, well, individual approach, more this connecting approach, then I think you will find solutions.
all right, great. I'm just looking at the questions are just rolling in, and we've got about 2 minutes left, so I'll try to get to them. And just a reminder to the audience, if we don't get to some of the questions, I will forward them to all the speakers whom you've asked,
Yep.
and I'm sure they'll be glad to answer them.
Yeah, or you can contact me directly. You see my
Yeah.
contact details on screen.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get to probably one more. It says that we want to be transparent, but it's always dangerous to give honest feedback to candidates. So this candidate could complain about um, and win legal proceedings. So what would you recommend?
Well, I think if you being transparent also to me means when it comes to feedback on candidates, how can you make sure you have feedback that's collected in a way that doesn't differentiate between candidates, between race, gender, whatever you have. And I think in a way there, if you use, for example, e-assessment, certain standardized tests, which you can easily compare, then you're being transparent in the feedback that you give because you use this same model that you've been using for everybody else, and which everybody else had the same opportunity, the same chances of doing in a similar way. And that's difficult if you have, even if you have standardized interviewing questions, because we always adapt during a conversation. And there's always an interpretation of what somebody is saying. But if you're using data from standardized tests, then you have something that you can easily use, going to be transparent about, and which I think isn't liable if you go to court, because, well, it's data that's being collected in a similar way, in this exactly the same way with everybody. So you can't be, they can't say that you're being biased or having made a wrong interpretation of what somebody has been doing or saying. So my advice would be, see which objective data that you can collect during the process and use that to give this transparent feedback.
All right. I think I'm going to have to say that this is all the time we have for answering the questions. I see there are some great questions. I hope that you will reach out and ask them, and then I'll also try to gather some answers and also post them on the website to have that handy. Thank you for your great presentation.
Thanks for having me.
And hope to see you at another one, which probably will pick up with the international web conferences after the summer.
Okay, we'll be in touch. I wish you all a very nice morning and inspiring presentations. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thanks. And we're already here with our next speaker. She's joining us from Sage, and her name is Grania Shaughnessy. She's the Global Product Marketing Manager at Sage. And her presentation today, I think, is a nice continuation of what we just talked about, and it is people marketing, 5 tips for providing the perfect candidate experience. Grania, are you there?
I am. Hello, good morning. How are you?
Good. So I will give the floor to you. We can already see your screen. So please tell us a little bit about you, about Sage, and then we'll enjoy your presentation.
Okay, perfect. So firstly, I'd just like to introduce today's webinar topic, and it's all about providing the perfect candidate experience. And I'll just be talking through 5 tips or considerations to think about when developing that candidate experience, which is so important. And on the agenda, there we go. So I'll just be explaining why it's so important. So the context of why a great candidate experience is so important in today's world of work, which is changing rapidly. And then I'll talk through those 5 tips for providing the perfect candidate experiences. And lastly, I'll cover next steps, and then it's your chance to ask me some questions too. And before we get stuck into the interesting bit of the webinar, I'll quickly introduce myself. So yeah, my name's Grania. I'm Global Product Marketing Manager at Sage. I'm really passionate about looking at technology and how it disrupts our everyday lives. You know, technology really is shaping our world and our economy, and I've been lucky enough to work in the tech space for several years now, and looking at ways technology can really help businesses grow. And more recently I joined Sage, and Sage Business Cloud People is a modern global cloud HR and people platform that helps fast-growing multinational organizations transform not only the way they acquire new employees, but how they retain, manage, and engage the workforce throughout their entire employee journey. Cool. So people marketing. Why do candidate experiences matter so much? Over the last few years, the concept of experiences has become a much more prominent topic within the HR space, and it's easy to see why in this technology era that we're in, and people's expectations on experience has changed. Just look at our customer experiences and how they've changed over the past few years. We've come to expect services like click and collect, 24/7 mobile shopping, mobile banking, same-day delivery, all those types of things for our convenience. And what's the difference between marketing and HR? Well, less than you might think. Marketing teams market a brand to consumers, and HR and people teams market a brand to potential and existing employees. It's a competitive job market. Offering a steady position for a good salary is no longer sufficient, and HR teams need to work much harder, not only to attract top talent, but to retain it too. And that's why it's crucial that HR leaders adopt the same principles that their marketing colleagues do. And HR and people teams need to look at how technology can be used as an enabler to help design and deliver those really great experiences for a multi-generational workforce that we have today. So one of the key things that you'll all be very aware of is that we are in the midst of a global skills crisis. There is an ongoing war for talent. And why is this? Well, it's simply because successful businesses need good people. And we also know that this war for talent is happening in the context of immense change. So businesses these days are 24/7, they're global, they're always on demand, and in many ways we're all consumers, whether we're thinking about personal situations and we're looking at things as a consumer, or we're in business mode and we're trying to do things from a business point of view. Nevertheless, we're still acting in many ways as we do as consumers, and this is carrying through to the way we do HR now. So the nature of the workforce itself has also changed. So we know it's extremely diverse, it's multicultural. We have 5 different generations in the workplace. We have different genders, we have different skills and different skill sets, and also we have diversity in terms of aspirations across those 5 generations. People have different aspirations at different times of their life or in their careers, and this has to be taken into consideration as we start thinking about how we really get the best out of our people and attract the right people into the business too. So, and if that wasn't enough, another interesting factor to throw into the mix is the rise in the contingent workforce. And data suggests that up to about 50% of companies, their workforce is actually made up of a contingent worker, and that's going to happen by 2020. And this means that many businesses have employees that work on projects across the business that may not be full-time employees. They could be freelancers, they could be part-timers, or they could be part of this emerging gig economy where people actually bid for services to make themselves available for projects online. And this is really starting to create quite an interesting challenge for both the way managers think about working with people on a daily basis and managing their teams, and of course the way that HR has to think about how you actually find that talent and keep that talent and get the best out of those different skill sets. And how does the traditional HR process work for today's workforce? The one-to-many approach of an annual appraisal, for example, when you have such a diverse workforce, may not work as well. This is a big challenge for HR leaders to get right. And as HR leaders, it's time to rethink how you work with people, how you go out and promote this to find the right people to get the right talent into the business. So I've got some stats here on this slide. So we're looking at engagement, and engagement really does remain a challenge. So if you look at this world map here, people are just not engaged. The first is that research has shown that over a number of years now, people are typically not fully engaged at work. They're not fully motivated. They're not giving their all to what they're doing. And if you look at the stats, only 1 in 3 people are actually engaged and fully motivated. So most of the people in a company, so that's about 70% of people, are not giving their best that they could give for whatever reason. And it's quite interesting, but yet a disturbing data point to think about, really. And the second stat there is only 36% of companies monitor employee engagement regularly. And I'm curious to ask our HR professionals listening today, how often do you actually ask your employees, are they motivated? What motivates them? And can you actually produce these sort of data points within your organization? So over to you, Anna. Could we ask our first poll, please?
All right, so we have just opened the poll here, and we will see. So once again, the question is, how often do you ask your employees if they're motivated and what motivates them? And you've got some choices here, once a month, once a quarter, once a year, continuous feedback, or we don't ask, or maybe you don't know if the company asks. So let's see. And Grania, what is your experience, or what would you guess would be the most common answer?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think annual appraisals were sort of the standard best practice approach. So we might get a lot of people answering once a year there still. But I think what we're seeing more today is this continuous feedback cycle. So it's ongoing, and just having that, two-way conversation on a consistently regular basis, rather than waiting for a whole year for feedback that might build up, that from month to month you might forget something that's happened a few months ago, and you're just not getting a true picture of actually what's going on. So we might see that continuous feedback option being chosen as well.
Might even be too late if you're doing it once a year to correct any actions or
exactly. And if someone's unhappy enough, they'll just leave, unfortunately, and then you lose your top talent that you spent a lot of time and money recruiting. So
yeah. Okay, I think that we can close the poll now and see what the results say. So we've got, wow, an equal share of, the most common answer is we don't ask, 32%. And then we've got once a quarter and continuous feedback being equal.
Okay.
26% each. And then once a year, 16%, and none are once a month.
All
right.
Well, yeah, it's good to see that once a quarter is pretty regular, and that continuous feedback options being up there. Sad to see that we don't ask. I wonder why that is. So if you have any comments, leave them.
Yeah, I would invite the audience here to comment in the chat, and we'll see if we can, it may be at the end of the presentation, we can revisit that and see what kind of answers we got there.
Cool. Is the presentation back up?
Actually, your desktop is back up.
Ah, there we go. Okay, cool. So there we go. So this slide here is more stats about sort of the productivity crisis that we're in at the moment. So now we're going to look at productivity and productivity growth as well. The chart on this slide, which comes from the Department of Statistics in the US, shows that while GDP has fluctuated over time, if you look at the trend overall, we've skipped a few slides there, let me go back. There we go. And if you look at the chart there, you'll see that it's overall pretty flat, and if anything, it's in decline. And this goes back to the 1950s, as you can see. And if you look at the last few years in particular, productivity growth is actually negative. So in spite of all the technology that we have, and in spite of the best practices that we seem to put into effect, we clearly have a problem, and it's not working, and it's not getting the best out of our people. So this raises some interesting questions, like, why is that? Well, I think one of the things that has started to become evident is that we need to understand more about motivation and engagement, which is why I think it's so important that we actually reach out to employees and ask what motivates them, so we get a better understanding. And I think, experience is part of how we can measure and look at that and actually get people engaged at work and bring that to the forefront more. It's harder than ever to both attract and keep top talent, as we know. There's that global talent crisis going on, and we actually conducted a survey of over 500 HR leaders in mid-sized, fast-growing companies. We asked them their views on barriers to growth, the role of their people in driving growth, and how they use and plan to use people data and analytics to inform business decisions, and how they are changing the way they manage and engage their people in this sort of new era of HR and people management. And the top challenges were, so getting the best out of your people, increasing HR productivity and business value, recruiting and retaining top talent, and knowing your people. So Anna, could we just take another moment here and ask our audience another poll, please?
We will do that. And the poll is running here. So the next question is, what is your top HR challenge when thinking about driving business growth? And your choices are getting the best out of your people, increasing HR productivity and business value, recruiting and retaining top talent, or knowing your people. And I see that some answers are already coming in.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see out of those 4 top or common challenges that we found from that survey, which one our audience members think today is their biggest challenge.
Yeah. So I think that in a second here we can wrap it up. So quickly vote. I'm not sure if that works, quickly vote, but yeah, we've got most of the answers in, and I think we will close it now. So the results say 60% recruiting and retaining top talent, and then 30% increasing HR productivity and business value, and 5 equally getting the best out of your people and knowing your people.
Okay, cool. Wow, recruiting, retaining top talent. It's interesting to see that that's the biggest one, and that's good because that's what we're talking about today. So I'll continue just to finish off my introduction, and we'll get into those 5 tips about creating great candidate experiences. So let's get the presentation back up. So here we're talking about workforce experiences and how this actually can drive performance. We asked 3,500 employees in companies across the US, Canada, and the UK as to how productive they think they are during the course of a week. Interestingly, a third of employees admitted that they are productive for less than 30 hours a week. And this speaks a little bit to the opportunity to address a productivity gap, and there's something that can be done about it. Employees themselves are saying, yes, we recognise that this is something that can be improved. Some other interesting data points that came out of the research was that 78% of those surveyed said that positive workforce experiences have a huge impact on productivity. And about 80% recognise the fact that if you can generate these positive experiences, this is going to have a positive impact on what your people do and how they work. And 66% said that being valued and recognised is the most important aspect of their work. Now, the interesting thing about this is that when you combine the 80% talking about positive workforce experiences, which you can see rises to 92% when you look at millennials, there in the middle, and then you're seeing that it's really some quite simple things that can be done to start generating these more positive experiences. So if you think about being recognized and the importance of recognition, and just being recognized for, you know, the good work that you're doing or the extra effort that you might have put in for something, or just simply helping someone with something that wasn't necessarily, you know, your responsibility or in your job description, I think it's really nice to be able to give feedback in a more contemporary way, like social recognition or kudos or peer shout outs. You know, being valued and appreciated can be critical to have someone just turn around and say, thank you so much. I know you went the extra mile there, and that was really helpful, and it helped me, you know, achieve what I needed to do. And that really matters greatly to a lot of people. Yet in many companies, this can get forgotten. So that 66% now, I think, is quite an interesting stat. So, you know, and that's something that can be easily fixed. And then we've also got here that only 12% of employees are asked regularly what would improve experiences. So like the poll that we just did, you know, actually asking what motivates you, what do you want to see at work, what experiences actually makes you excited or happy or more productive, all those sorts of questions. And and that two-way conversation that you can get going with your workforce is really important. You know, you hired them for their skills, for their mind, so why don't you actually go out and ask them what they can help input into the business to make everyone's experience at work much more meaningful. So hopefully this gives you a little perspective and validation of how important workforce experiences are. And this really does start right from the candidate experience. So here, just very quickly, I just wanted to tie this back to sort of the economic argument of why workforce experiences are so important. It's not just a feel-good culture within a company. It's not just about employees or a HR conversation. This is actually about economics. There's a financial consideration which makes this extremely relevant to how businesses actually think about productivity and performance. You know, great workforce experiences equals business growth. So what this research here is just showing is that if you focus on workforce experiences, you can actually see revenue increase by a factor of 2, and that profit per employee can actually be 4 times higher than companies that don't invest in their employees and don't take this whole concept of experiences or employee experiences very seriously. So just to recap there, building a business is hard, and it's even harder when there's so much competition for great talent. And employers must work harder, be smarter, and apply new techniques to find, attract, and hire and onboard the best people. With the ongoing skills crisis and war for talent, it's not easy to find good people when the supply of talent is somewhat limited. And your ability to attract and acquire the best people is critical for your company's future success. And, you know, there's a global skills crisis going on. Productivity and engagement is stagnated, as we saw in that chart earlier. Companies don't know enough about their people. You know, you really got to get out there and ask them what's going on. Workplace technology is changing in this technology era that we're in. You know, as consumers, we expect a lot from technology, and that doesn't change when it comes to HR anymore. And the workforce itself is changing. So we've got loads of generations, multicultural stuff. So, you know, how do HR processes fit with our new workforce? And this means finding and hiring top talent has become ever more competitive as, you know, organizations really struggle to get it right. And manual recruitment, advertising positions, applicant tracking systems, you know, these are all being replaced by proactive social recruitment, and people marketing and seamless hiring, selection and onboarding processes are super important. So people marketing. 5 tips for providing the perfect candidate experiences. You know, people marketing is crucial for creating great candidate experiences throughout the recruitment and onboarding journey. When you think about marketing and your marketing team who actually go out and attract customers, just substitute that with employee. So with today's tech-savvy population, it's now a basic requirement to offer great employee experiences. Employees expect their brand and HR interactions to be seamless, no matter when, where, or what type of channel they use to engage. And people marketing means applying approaches in marketing to your workforce and how you engage them right from the get-go. So you need to think about your candidate experiences as first impressions count a lot. And so first tip, and it's quite a broad brush, this one, be a great place to work. There are many things which can make an organization a great place to work, and here are some pointers that you can look at to help with good employee experiences. Remember the employee stats I talked through earlier, where 78% of those surveyed said that positive workforce experiences have a huge impact on productivity. So you need to take a look at the work experiences your organization offers end to end, so right from the candidate experiences right through to retirement. And what are you doing well? What needs some TLC? Have you asked your employees what they think? And even in this modern era, of digital transformation and millennial workers, few companies offer employee self-service, integrate their recruitment and or onboarding experiences, or use data to inform their people decisions. It's almost absurd, really, that companies know so little about their employees, and you know, you wouldn't dream of not knowing enough about your customers or having a poor CRM, and you know, that gives you little insights. So self-service and automation can really empower your employees with access to a central HR and people system, which is available on mobile and is self-service. They can do admin tasks like booking holiday on the go. You can remove barriers and can improve employee engagement whilst also freeing up your HR team so they can focus on those employee experiences and how to make the business a great place to work. And as I said earlier, kudos, it's such an easy thing to forget, but our earlier research showed that 66% said that being valued and recognised is the most important aspect of their work. Your team is awesome, and you should celebrate that together. By encouraging a company culture where teams and individuals can appreciate someone's work by giving out shout outs and kudos, you can have a huge impact on how your employees perceive their place of work and feeling valued. And then common communication, and feedback. In every engagement survey, one of the most common themes of feedback is that employees would like better communication. So we all know that effective communication is critical to keeping employees engaged, and communication provides context, it provides purposes, it provides everyone's, you know, making sure everyone's joined up and working towards a common goal. And there are a couple of things that you can consider here, like with your marketing. Why don't you segment and tailor your employee messages? So you could do this by profession, departments, positions, and actually send targeted communications and avoid sort of information overload, which tends to be another common piece of feedback, that, you know, they're just getting over bombarded with communications. Which my next point is about regular feedback, which is more about asking for input, ideas. You know, your employees are your most valuable asset, and if you're not asking them regularly how you can improve experiences, I think this is a massive red flag that you should consider definitely making that one of the things that you build into your HR strategy. Flexibility. It's another simple one, but also can get overlooked. Employees place importance and value on the common, you know, on the being able to have a flexible work-life balance, being agile and remote working, so working from home. In today's busy world, where everyone is completely flat out in terms of trying to get the balance between work and personal life, and balancing family commitments with personal commitments and work commitments, time really is of the essence, and therefore the importance of you as an individual being able to manage your time to best effect is something that employees are telling organisations is one of the most critical ways you can actually start to create better experiences for people, because they can manage their lives more effectively. And as a consequence of that, they are, you know, you're letting them be accountable and responsible for the way they work, as opposed to managing them and telling them, well, you're going to have to do what you need to do and you can only do it this way for this period of time. It's actually giving them some ownership and some responsibility. Cool. So on this next tip, we are talking about how you promote your employer brand. So promoting the brand to attract new talent is a responsibility which sits with the HR and people team and should form part of your strategy on an ongoing basis. Take social media to the next level by engaging your employees and encouraging employees to follow your social media channels. Fine-tune your recruiting process to make sure candidates have a standout experience, which they promote and share with others. And create fun swag that employees can wear around town and share with friends. For example, here at Sage People, on my first day, I got a Sage People hoodie with my name on the back. I got a Sage People water bottle and a Sage People t-shirt, which was great. I immediately took a picture of it, posted it on social media, and it made me feel valued and part of the team. So little things like that can really impact that candidate experience. Profile individual employees and ask them, what do you love about working here, and why not have a blog post which is 10 things employees love working at Sage People and why. And why not turn this into a video? Experiment with new channels of promoting your employee brand, such as YouTube or SlideShare, Instagram. So a really good example of a careers video for me is Fresh Egg. So they are a web agency who are based in Brighton in the UK. And if you go to their careers page, they've got a really strong video on the essence of their company culture and positive testimonials from their employees. And it's very motivating, and it really does motivate you to want to be a part of that team. So that can have a huge impact on recruitment as well. And why not enter into an award? So one of our customers, I was doing a bit of research yesterday for this, and Innocent Smoothies is one of our customers, and they are actually number 3 on the best mid-sized companies to work for by the Sunday Times. So why not enter some awards like that? Firstly, it's great. It's a great accolade that you can put on your website, you can put on your careers page. You can say, someone's come and looked at the way that we run our business, our HR strategy, and I've actually said, these guys are really, really great to work for. But also probably while you're building your application and looking at your processes and what's that made up of, you'll look at things that you can improve and start to actually build a really great HR strategy, which will then ensure you win those types of awards going forwards. And I've mentioned a careers page there quite a few times. So just like marketing have their homepage and key landing pages, your careers page needs to be your headliner, not an afterthought. So it should include your company values and plenty of visuals and illustrate what it's like to work at your company. And this is your shop window for your organization and attracting new talent. And yeah, just like your marketing team, you should apply the same principles. So number 3 is get your employees to be ambassadors. So if you tie this back to tip number 1, be a great place to work. If you've got happy employees, you can really leverage those to be your ambassadors and your advocates. Unsurprisingly, more than half of worldwide job searches on Indeed are via mobile. So that's 48% in the US, 54% in the UK, and 74% in Japan. So people use their mobiles to read company reviews, research salary information, and even fill out job applications. So it's essential for your company to have a mobile optimized careers site with a mobile-friendly application process, and offer a paperless contracts, digital signing, so that when you find the right candidate, it's quick and easy to get them on board. But creating the right first impression is paramount, as first impressions are lasting. So the first days or weeks of employment can be a major influencer on employees' success or failure. And I think, talent that gets referred from your employees, because they really enjoy working there, they're really happy about working for an organisation, they are 50% more likely to succeed and be top performers within an organisation, which is really interesting. And I think social media here, so you need to get your employees following your social feeds, but also sharing new job applications online, sharing cool things. So we run quite a few things here in the office. So for example, Pancake Day, we had pancakes and strawberries and chocolate sauce, and lots of people shared that on Facebook and Twitter, because that was something really nice to do. So if you can actually get your employees to be ambassadors and advocates and actually refer their friends or family or people that they know that work hard, that can have a really positive impact on business. So I've got an example here. A Finnish IT company, Vincit, more than half of their employees come through word of mouth. So recommendations from its own employees, and it was actually named one of the best places to work in 2016 in Europe. And you know, research does show that when hires were the result of an employee referral, they have longer tenures and higher performance, as I mentioned. And 33% of employees are likely to post pro and con information, messages, pictures, videos. So, you know, you really need to mobilize your employees as brand advocates. So 4, deliver great experiences. So this is actually when I was talking about mobile. It is really important to have a mobile-friendly application process and offer paperless contracts, digital signing, finding the right candidates and making it really quick and easy to get them on board. First impressions really do count. The first days or weeks in employment can be a major influencer of an employee's success and down the road. So your onboarding process needs to support new hires so they don't feel overwhelmed. A well-planned process should leave a positive first impression that will evolve into a lasting, productive relationship with your company. Onboard, but don't overboard. So we don't want to overwhelm them, as I mentioned, but you should also make sure that it includes workforce basics, but you should avoid too much information too quickly so that they don't feel overwhelmed. So I've got another example here. So games giant Valve has created an engaging handbook for new employees, and it's packed full of illustrations, jokes, stories, and gives a flavour of the company culture as well as that really warm welcome. Portuguese web design company Memoria Visual represents new employees with a culture book and shows its values and aspirations in a fast-paced story format. And giving that warm welcome, small gestures can make a huge difference to reinforce the belief that they've made the right career choice by working with you. So things like treating them to lunch on the first day with their peers and managers, or setting up a mentor or buddy system, or, you know, something that I've done before is give them a book from an influencer in your industry that you've enjoyed reading and found really informative. Why don't present that to them on their first day? Some other examples, Rackspace, who are a cloud computing company, comprises a week of presentations from C-level execs, VPs, directors, and share their experiences and explain why they love working at the organisation. And Spedfast, the US social software platform, you know, all their employees actually start on a Friday rather than a Monday. The theory here is that most people are in a better mood on Friday, which makes the onboarding process much smoother. So finally, we've got set your new employees up for success. Rapid onboarding, I think, is really important. So once you've found the right candidate, you need to bring them on board smoothly and help them feel that they're part of the business, both professionally and culturally. So they need to be able to transition from a candidate to an employee status seamlessly through the integration with internal systems such as IT, security, facilities. Not only do companies with great onboarding processes retain new hires 50% better than their peers, but they also create new employee brand advocates. So, you know, they can attract other new great hires and retain those for longer too. And your branding needs to be consistent from your career page and the experience your candidates receive right from the job offer through to their first day, through to learning, training, induction, internal communications. It needs to be consistent. and offer engaging multimedia. Not everyone wants to read a big document. They might want an interactive site or videos or podcasts. So see about different ways that you can actually provide learning, training, induction and information. Feedback is essential for success. So you should have a two-way dialogue with your employees, as I've mentioned quite a bit before. So our final point is set your new employees up for success, which also seems pretty straightforward, but I'm just going to recap our 5 tips for providing the perfect candidate experiences. So 1, be a great place to work. 2, promote your employer brand. 3, get your employees to be your ambassadors and promote your employer brand too. Deliver a great candidate experience and set your new employees up for success. Very quickly, I'm just going to run through how you can use a system to deliver a great workforce experience. So I will point out it's not simply a case of implementing the technology and then that will be it. You can sort of dust your hands off and you're done and dusted. It's just not going to work like that. We've seen from the stats that I've talked through today that hasn't been working, and global engagement numbers that we've looked at are low. So you need to start thinking about how you can use technology to start driving some of these changes and be supporting the strategy that you develop, that you actually distill into your teams. And a modern HR system that's not just a HCM, that are actually a HR and people system that focuses on the entire workforce, can do things like enable you to completely brand your self-service portal. The interface that your employees are seeing every day will help you drive brand through not just externally in the way that your marketing teams would do for customers, but by using the branding internally, you can ensure that your brand values and culture is reflected across the organization. And critically, the combination of all these things can help companies truly transform the way in which they think about and provide experiences, so you can offer a great candidate experience. And lastly here, I've got some screenshots of our self-service portals for some of our customers, and you can see in the middle there that Innocent are there, who I mentioned being the 3rd best company to work for by the Sunday Times. And they actually call their self-service portal Fruitbook, and they've got a great company culture there, and I think it's easy to see why they've been voted the 3rd best company to work for. And you can see that all of these are different brands, and they've shown different information that they want to provide their employees. So should probably wrap up because we're running out of time. So next steps and Q&A. So if you've got any questions, please use the questions box. But next steps, a lot of this information that I've spoke about today is from one of our white papers, which is called People Marketing, which you can find on the resources area of our website. And if you want to get in touch, please do. There's our contact information there on the screen at the moment. Feel free to get in touch. Anna, over to you.
Okay, we have only 2 minutes, so I'll try to get this one question in, which I was supposed to actually ask during your presentation because it was relevant. The question is, do you have the productivity crisis stats for Europe or Germany and Switzerland, for example? Because I believe you showed the US statistics.
So yeah, that was US, Canada, and the UK. I don't offhand, but I can, if Anna, you could provide me with the information who's asked that, I can definitely find out for you.
Okay, great. I will do that. And also for any other questions that we are unfortunately not going to have time to answer, please either reach out to Grania directly or visit our event page right after, well, within about 24 hours of the web conference, and you'll have links there to get in touch with the speakers. And there will be links, so hopefully that will answer the questions that have come in. And
Awesome.
Grania, thank you for another great presentation. And,
thank you.
I hope that we will be doing this again sometime soon.
Me too. Thanks very much. Bye.
And 10:45, I already have to jump to the next presentation, and I see that our next presenter is already here. And
Hi, Anna.
that would
This is
be,
Walter.
hello. Walter Weber
Hi.
of Cameo is here, and he will be talking about video recruiting, which I briefly mentioned at the very beginning of our web conference. And the presentation is 5 reasons why employees love video recruiting. So Walter, please tell us a little bit about you, about Cameo, and finally your presentation, please.
Super. Thanks, Anna. And really kind of enjoyed, I must say, the previous webinar. So really enjoyable to kind of to take a deep dive there and see some great examples of how employers are doing this. So thanks a lot also for the previous very insightful webinar part. So my name is Walter Weber. I'm with Cameo. We're video recruiting experts. Yeah, we basically are a company, it's a European provider of video recruitment solutions. Yeah, this is actually the only thing we do. So fully focused on this topic of how to show candidates as part of the recruiting process and create a very streamlined application process with video. My name is Walter Weber, and I'm co-founder and CEO at Cameo. We basically, yeah, I've a lot of experience when it comes to consulting, marketing, positioning, and also employer branding. I'm Dutch-Austrian, so basically English is not my first language. That would be Dutch and German. And actually, I've really enjoyed kind of working in a lot of markets over the past years. And actually, I've seen a lot of different employers also, the way they position themselves, but also the way they engage and interact with talent in the market. So today, really very much would like to share my experience, insights, and knowledge on video recruiting specifically. And the basis for today's webinar is really very much about is from our white paper, 5 reasons why employers love video recruitment. Or actually, it's an ebook in this case, which is sometimes a blurred line between ebooks and white papers. But basically, we have some really good content on this topic. Actually, you are all invited, obviously, to go online, visit our website, and kind of make use of all the content that we publish. We have blogs there, we have research papers there, white papers, because we really feel that as one of the leading providers of video recruiting in Europe, we also have a responsibility to educate the market and make sure that people can use it in the right way. And then when they have their first experience with video recruiting as an employer, that they can adopt practices and best practices from other employers actually who've done this with us before. So again, this today's webinar is really very much based on our ebook, 5 Reasons Why Employers Love Video Recruiting. So I'll make it very much to the point. I'll talk about recruiting trends. I'll talk about video recruiting also, and I'll show some practical applications of video recruiting. To open up, I would be very interested to kind of see, is anybody already using video interviews? And that could be very broad. So maybe Anna, you can help with launching our first poll. And I would be interested to know who's using video interviews. And it could be that could also be, an occasional Skype interview. It could be whatever, a meeting on Hangout with a developer. It could be a variety of things, but yeah, don't necessarily need to know if you use a specialized video recruiting platform like ours. But really, have you used video interviews in your selection process before?
All right, so we've got the poll running, and you'll see what kind of results we get. And I think it's good that you clarify that basically any video interviews count here. Doesn't have to be a specialized platform.
I think the beauty today is, of course, that we have webcams, we have microphones in multiple places around us. In our mobile phones, in our tablets, in our laptops. So basically, it becomes a more and more natural way of communicating, also with friends, family, business partners, colleagues, but also, of course, with applicants. There's a variety of ways of doing this. So anything goes.
All right, so let's see. I think that we've had the poll open for long enough. uh, maybe we can take a look at the results now. And we've got 76% saying no, and 24% saying yes, and then everybody was clear about the answer, at least. We didn't have any
that's a really good thing. Yeah, that's a really good thing. Okay. Yeah. So thanks to everyone for participating. I think it's really good to kind of have an insight there. I think, to be honest, this is I think as said very clear. There's a yes or a no, and not a don't know. To actually have 3/4 of people not having used video interviews before or not using them currently in any shape or form is actually not representative in the market. We actually already see that around 1/4 to 1/3 of companies, maybe in some instances up to half of companies, or 50% of companies actually really use a specialized video recruiting solution. So the adaptation, of course, of generic tools should be much wider. So it's actually quite surprising as a poll result, because this is not necessarily what we currently see happening in the market. But yeah, thanks a lot for sharing. This is really, I think, very useful insight from me as well. So at the beginning of this webinar, thank you. Let me proceed. So one of my favorite movies, Happy Feet. Not sure if everyone has seen that movie, but I think it's I could probably watch this movie like 1,000 times. So it's a movie about a penguin, but it will make you happy. So I can recommend it. It's probably somewhere on Netflix. If you have a lazy afternoon somewhere, just watch it. Watch the movie Happy Feet. It's one of the it's a very positive movie out there. I think. For me, actually, the analogy here is a candidate experience. So one of the first reasons out of 5 of why employers love video recruiting is because actually it allows them to create a very favorable candidate experience. And I think actually, to be honest, for me, a candidate should be at the heart of any recruiting process. It's not the recruiter who's the most important stakeholder in a recruiting process. It's not the hiring manager who's the most important stakeholder in the recruiting process. It's the candidate. It should all be focused on the candidate and delivering a first-class candidate experience. And video will allow you to do that. Let me show you why. If you have, I'm sorry, actually, I will start with a couple of Netflix analogies. This is another Netflix series, The Flash. And basically, if you look at candidate experience, the speed is actually something that really can frustrate, the lack of speed, candidates, or can impress candidates. If you have a fast process of selection, so once somebody has shown their interest in your job, and then your selection process can be faster than your competitors or other companies that people have applied with, this is actually creating a great candidate experience. And video will allow you to create a faster process. On average, we see that the time to hire of companies using video interviews, whereas they're compared to the time to hire previously, before they were using video interviews, can be reduced by at least 2 weeks. And 2 weeks could make the difference between landing the top candidate and landing a second or a third best candidate. And 2 weeks will definitely mean creating a difference in candidate experience for all candidates. So speed is of the essence here, and video recruiting will allow you to have a faster process. Why? Because scheduling is much easier. Suddenly, you don't need to wait for somebody to travel somewhere. They need to take a day off. You could already facilitate that people could meet you online that same evening when they contacted you, if it's an interesting candidate. But at the same time, it would be a very visual meeting because you can use your webcam. You can also allow candidates you don't have to kind of invite them for a phone interview or ring them up. You can also send them a question set, an alternate interview, and also in that sense, speed up the process. So speed is important. And on average, we see an improvement of at least 2 weeks of companies applying video interviews. Great candidate experience. The second thing actually would be transparency. So basically, if you look at a video-powered recruiting process, what you see is that you are able to open up your company and be more transparent than compared to a traditional process. Why? Because if you implement video, what you could do, for example, is you could add all kinds of components in your video interview to include video content on the company, show them what the workplace looks like. You could actually have colleagues ask the questions in the video interview. You could actually involve the hiring manager early in the process in the video interview. So it becomes more transparent, because in the end, it's not about you getting a clear picture of the candidate. And of course, video will help there, because the picture of the candidate is much more complete rather than just a resume or just a CV. But it's also about the candidate getting more transparency into the company. So if you can use a video interview process to also show your workplace, show your colleagues, maybe even, we have some great examples on that, have the CEO of the company ask the questions through video, recorded video questions, actually you will create a very favorable impression for candidates. So transparency is very important, but of course it goes further than just video recruiting. I personally believe that in recruiting, it's important to be transparent in a way that you can show candidates how many people have applied. What's the next step in the process? How many steps actually does the process consist of? And to really give transparency, just like you would give transparency when people are shopping online. So how many items are still in stock? Do they have my size? What time does it take to deliver? So have a very transparent process, and video can help you with that. But of course, it's not the complete answer. But candidate experience very much benefits from a transparent process. And the third aspect actually would be that suddenly with video, you can make the selection process also much more visual and much more engaging. The example I just mentioned by, for example, in our automated video interview formats, where you actually allow employers to create a question set and then allow candidates to answer these questions through a video recording. What if your CEO could record those questions? We actually have seen some very successful examples in, for example, graduate programs, traineeship programs, where this is being applied. And suddenly, wow, this is really cool. For my very first interview, the CEO is asking me these questions. But also incorporate your employer branding into your video interview. So suddenly, rather than going on a generic product, on a Skype or Google Hangout or FaceTime, you actually have a branded interview environment. You can add employer branding content through video there. So it becomes very visual and very engaging, and much more so than a phone interview or asking people to upload a motivation letter as part of the application process. So make it visual and engaging, and this will add to your candidate experience. So the second reason why employers love video recruiting is because it helps them become more efficient. And efficiency means a lot of things. I think efficiency could also mean that you are victimizing the candidate. So suddenly the candidate feels the victim of an efficiency machine, and that should not be the case. I think it should really be efficiency on the employer side, but the candidate should feel that they're engaged with, it's transparent, it's fast, and it's a service actually delivered to them. But at the same time, as a side effect, you should expect recruitment efficiency. And why is this happening? When you look at traditional recruiting versus video-powered recruiting, you can see that the location suddenly becomes very independent. That actually is an efficiency because you're not limited to a phone meeting or an on-site meeting. Suddenly, anywhere with an internet connection, anywhere where you have a smartphone or a laptop available, you can start your conversation and engage with candidates. So efficiency, it means it becomes much easier. Scheduling, of course, is what we see as one of the key headaches when it comes to recruiting and the selection process. To schedule meetings, somebody cannot make it, somebody has to take time off, somebody's already traveling, and then there's a lot of back and forth to come to a meeting, and then the meeting happens. But what if you could automate that scheduling? For example, in the Cameo platform, it's possible to expose your calendar. Quite simple, based on your availability and some key settings that you have, for example, times between meetings, etc. And suddenly the candidate is invited for an interview, but they can schedule a moment in time within your setting parameters that is most convenient to them. They just schedule their interview, you get an invitation, it's in your calendar, and there's no back and forth, voicemails, trying to come to a meeting, but the scheduling is actually automated, and the candidates are serviced by picking the date and time that's most applicable to them. And of course, the process in video recruiting is also much more fair, because basically you are able to compare candidates in a very structured way. And this is also helping you to create a much more efficient selection process, because every candidate will have answered the same questions. So you can easily compare recordings and come to the right selection. And obviously, earlier in the process, rather than just looking at text and your assumptions based on text in a resume, in a cover letter, or in the application form, you get a full comprehensive picture of the candidate, including video and answers to your questions. And it also adds to the efficiency of the process. So overall, what we see, basically in a video-powered recruiting process, employers can save time and cost, so become more efficient in their video interviews. We actually see in the market 3 types of video interviews, and those 3 types would be a video pitch. Just to give you some context, the video pitch actually is a recording that you could already add in your application form. So rather than asking the candidate to upload a cover letter or a motivation letter, you could ask them to record a video optionally as part of the application. So they have the choice. Do I do this through text or do I do this through video? And what you see is actually that text is limiting many people, because you're not looking for a screenwriter, you're not looking for a copywriter, you're looking maybe for an IT person, you're maybe looking for a good salesperson, you're looking for a call agent or somebody to work in a retail location. But does it mean that these people should be selected based on their writing skills? No. So why limit their options to writing only? Why not give them the opportunity to present who they really are in a much more authentic fashion? And this is the video pitch. It's basically a cover letter through video that you can add in your application form. The second format would be an automated interview. And an automated interview is really very much replacing currently a telephone screening. So whereas the telephone screening is repetitive, so you would ask every candidate the same questions, and you have a lot of hassle with scheduling, hitting voicemails, not reaching somebody. An automated interview basically allows you to create a script and then send that script to a candidate, and they can answer your questions at their convenience at a moment in time that they prefer, within a certain deadline, obviously, and you receive all these answers from all these candidates in a very structured fashion without having to chase them on their voicemail. Very structured, very engaging, and have a good service to candidates, because actually it meets their time schedule rather than your urgency. And of course, a live interview is very much about creating a on-brand experience for candidates to do an interview with you that you can actually do at the same day that they're applying. If you have a super good candidate, why let them wait for 2 weeks before they can come into the office? Why not invite them for a video interview immediately that same evening and make sure you are the first employer to engage with them and increase your stakes of hiring that person into your team? So the faster you are in your process, the more likely you will be able to hire the best candidates. And an automated interview basically could look like this. So it's branded, so your logo will be there. There will be a background image. It can happen on any device. So it's very efficient. Anybody with an internet connection, a microphone, and a webcam can start their automated interview. So the third reason of why employers love video recruiting, maybe take a sip of water, would be the quality of hire. So quality, of course, is super important. As I said, the faster your process, the more likely you will be able to hire the best possible candidates. But how does video actually improve the quality of hire? These are some of our clients that really focus on video interviewing to ensure they increase the quality of hire within their staff. And it could also be employers or intermediaries, staffing agencies that do this on behalf of their clients. But basically a very strong focus on, we need better candidates, and we know it's a competitive market. So we need to have tooling, technology in place to allow us to increase the quality of hire. So let me kind of show you, I think, hopefully, the most boring slide of my presentation today, of the webinar, but I think it's a very relevant one. This is research from 1997, so already quite old, but it's super relevant research. And the funny fact about this research actually is that this research is a meta study. So basically, it's a study on top of research that's even older, that really helps you understand why structure in your recruiting process, structure in your interview process, allows you to boost reliability and validity of your of your process. So basically what this study says is if you have structure in your interview process, so basically every candidate has a similar interview process, then you will be more likely to have reliability in your process, and you will have a higher quality of candidates. The only challenge I guess was in 1997 is that it was knowledge out there. HR people would get this knowledge, recruiters would get this knowledge, and they would try to convince their hiring manager that, let's make sure that every candidate has a script in an interview, and we actually try to compare them in a very structured way. And the hiring manager, they will basically look maybe at a CV 10 seconds before the interview starts, and then have a very unstructured interview, and in the end are trying to look for a person that's like themselves. Suddenly today, if you look at video recruiting, we now have the technology to apply this knowledge that's already quite old, and apply structure in our interview process to make sure we boost validity and we boost reliability of the process. For example, if you look at a live interview, this is a live interview user interface where you can see a candidate, you can actually see multiple interviewers, smaller. There's also an opportunity to record the session. You actually have a branded background again. In this live interview format on Cameo, you see that you can even create a structure here. So of course, with automated interview, that's quite logical. You have created a script and you send out the script for candidates to answer these recordings independently. But for a live interview, what you can do, what's different, for example, from tools like Skype or Hangouts, which are great for communication, but are not so great for recruiting purposes, you can create a script. So you can actually have topics in this interview format, and the hiring manager that you invite to conduct an interview with a candidate suddenly has a script in his user interface. He can or she can tick the boxes whenever they covered a certain topic. They can immediately rate these topics. And that means that every candidate, although the conversation could be organic, has a similar structure, and you're boosting validity and reliability of your interview process. Old knowledge, but now applied to the latest technology. And the great thing is actually, you can also record this interview, so you can repurpose it. So in hindsight, when you've created recordings of maybe 4 or 5 candidates that you've interviewed, you've created the structure, you've ticked these boxes, you can then start comparing these candidates in a very structured way and make sure you hire the best possible candidate. And of course, in automated interviews, that's quite simple. Also because when you invited a candidate for an automated interview, as said, there would be a script. The candidates answer those questions remotely, but then every candidate actually has answered exactly the same questions. You can compare them in this structured format. You can rate them, and also there you can basically have a very structured way of comparing candidates. What we actually see is when it comes to the quality of hire is that the gut feeling of recruiters and hiring managers, I think you will come across this expression quite often. We've got a good feeling about this candidate. I can trust my gut feeling. I've already hired so many people. I know this is the best possible candidate. But basically, where's the science? There's more and more research coming out where basically the gut feeling is sort of human judgment, so to speak, is compared to algorithms, where basically you apply an algorithm to measure candidate performance or to predict a match of a candidate on a certain role, culture, or job or company. And basically, in every single instance, when it comes to ratings, when it comes to promotions, when it comes to learning capability, the algorithm is better in predicting candidate performance than the human judgment is, which is an interesting thing to take out of today. So I think if we do not start structuring our interview process, we may just well give it altogether to an algorithm. And I think today the interesting contrast in recruiting is that if you are a recruiter, you're hiring candidates, and this is a statistic on jobs with the highest and the lowest likelihood of being automated, you today still have a choice. The bottom of this chart, the telemarketers, the accountants, retail salespeople, technical writers, you basically see that their job is most likely going to be automated in the next 2 decades. The top of the list, recreational therapists, dentists, trainers, clergy, those jobs have the least likelihood of being automated in the next 2 decades. So the question today you can ask yourself as a recruiter, looking at your daily tasks, am I calling people constantly? Am I writing the same email to every candidate? Am I sourcing candidates with the same content all the time? So basically, are my tasks repetitive? If that's the case, I think you are somehow at the lower end of this chart. Your job is likely going to be automated. So any repetitive task can be automated. But if your job is more coaching candidates, convincing them, selling to candidates, the job, but also making sure that you coach them in the right direction, that you can advise them, give them career counsel, you become more of a business partner also to your hiring manager, then I'd say you start acting more like a therapist, and then your job will have the least likelihood of being automated. So I think today you still have that choice. Are you a telemarketer or are you a therapist? Is your job going to be automated, or is your job going to be advising candidates and clients? The fourth reason why clients and employers love video recruiting is basically they can use it as an assessment. And I think that's somehow repetitive or adds to what I previously told you, is that today actually employers are using video recruiting as assessments. The comparable structures and the structured way of conducting interviews, of course, allows you to really have a higher validity, but also there's other ways of using video interviews as a assessment tool. This is a statistic from the World Economic Forum that compares candidates and what companies are looking for in candidates in 2015 and 2020. Let's say we're somehow in the middle, right? So 2015 was, 2020 will be. And this is the expectation of employers looking at candidates. What you see in this chart, I think, is a really significant shift. Whereas we used to really focus on skills, stuff that we could find on a CV, maybe education levels, maybe job experience, certain diplomas, and hard skills. Today, the soft skills are becoming more and more important. If you look at creativity, emotional intelligence, cognitive flexibility, those things are becoming more and more prominent. And those are actually quite hard to see and recognize from a CV. So we need more and more assessments of candidates. We need more and more personality assessments to predict who's going to be the right person. Because if we only look at hard skills, those hard skills might be relevant yesterday, but who's to say that those skills are still relevant tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? Whereas a personality is really a much better predictor of future job performance. And this is also what the market is recognizing. So we need to find ways to add more assessment tooling into our recruiting process to make sure we continue to hire the right candidates, because the CV will just not do it anymore. So what can you do with a video interview? You can actually measure personality, and I'll show you in a moment actually how that's done. You can also measure language. So for example, our client, the European Union, actually the European Commission, and their the part of that, the European Commission actually that's responsible for the hiring across the EU organization, the European Personnel Selection Office. They, for example, use the video interviews partly to look at skills and competencies and knowledge on specific topics, but also on language. For the jobs that require French as a language, for example, of course, this is then now the bad example, sprechen Sie Deutsch. But for jobs that require French, and there's actually quite a lot of jobs in the European Union that require French, people find it quite easy to tick the box. Yes, I speak French. And then the European Personnel Selection Office would only find out in the assessment day itself, and probably in the first 5 or 10 minutes, that these people, these candidates, their level of French is not sufficient to perform well in that job. So what they do in a video interview, they ask candidates to reply answers or give answers in French. So for them to already assess the basic level of French speaking, to assess them as part of the selection process. So a language test actually is very easily conducted on video. Just ask the question in language. We also have it, for example, for one of our clients, Sonos, who's hiring into a multilingual customer support team. What they do, they also ask these customer support agents to reply or answer questions in their language And then basically a recruiter who may not speak all the languages can then just easily send that video file to a colleague who speaks the language, and they can help assess the language capability of that specific candidate. Culture is very important. Of course, a video interview is not that suitable to ask closed questions. You know, how many years experience do you have, or what's your most recent education? That stuff you can find on a CV. You don't need video interviews for that. But what you would like to kind of recognize is the values of candidates, what drives them, what's their motivation, and that's very much culture related. So we also see many companies actually asking questions on culture. Let me point out Sonos again as an example. Sonos actually is a wireless hi-fi company. They produce these loudspeakers. You can connect through your Wi-Fi. You can have multiple speakers in your home. And it's just, the whole company is actually built around music and the experience of music. One of the questions that they ask candidates as part of their video interview is, who's your favorite band or artist? So basically, their interview question, their selection process, and it's 1 out of 5 questions, I think, is who's your favorite band or artist? And what they are looking for in the answer of a candidate is that a candidate actually has a favorite band or artist, because, you know, this company is all about music experience. So if you're not really into music, this is not going to be the right company for you. And that's very much cultural. And the interesting fact is also, it's quite easy, what they do if a candidate in the next round goes on site for this job interview, so the final round is on site, they play this music for the candidate. There's no right or wrong answer. They just want to see a passion for music. And when you go in for your on-site interview, they will play the music for you on those great Sonos loudspeakers. Well, that's just a simple idea, but I think it, for some candidates, it could give them some goosebumps in terms of positive candidate experience. But also competencies. I think video interviews are very often used to measure competencies. And for example, competencies, most companies or many companies actually would have already a competency framework with questions. But if you add structure to your interview process, you can also easily ask questions based on competencies and then score and rate candidates based on their answers for these specific competencies. So also their structure is very powerful, and competencies also are very good in being applied to a video interview. Just maybe as one more point here, what we also see as a new trend with video interviews is actually that we see more and more situational judgment tests. So we actually see that the video displays a situation that you would normally see in a traditional role play assessment situation, but of course that's very expensive. And in the video interview, you can give candidates a situation, so you can present the situation to them through video, and you can ask them how they would respond in this situation, given these circumstances and knowing the job they're applying for. So also situational judgment tests are very good to deliver through video. Based on, so back to personality, which I started with that when I talked about assessments. Basically, if you look at personality, what we are able to do today, we can analyze the tone, or actually analyze the speech of a candidate, the audio, and actually we can recognize verbal reasoning patterns there. And based on that, we can actually create a big 5 personality profile. It's fully automated, and it talks about openness to experience. So what's your learning capability, conscientiousness, which is basically, you know, are you organized, are you structured? It talks about extraversion, agreeableness, but also emotional stability. So those are the 5 dimensions that we can fully automatically measure based on the video interview. So there's no assessment needed. We will analyze the content fully automated of what people have said, and based on their verbal reasoning patterns, so how they structure sentences, the word choice they're using, we can actually create this big 5 personality profile. And currently we are also in proof of concept to add micro expressions to this, so we can also start reading the face and what's happening in the face, and create a personality profile from that. But currently that technology is still limited to emotion, and we are now researching if we can bring this to the level of personality, which I think will be a great next step also in creating more data for a video interview. Obviously, you need to tell candidates if you're doing this, and you need to get their permission to do this if you're applying this type of assessment in your video interview. The 5th reason why employers love video recruiting is because it actually gives them reach. So suddenly from being limited to a specific office location, or suddenly from being limited to a specific location, you can suddenly go anywhere. If you look at our footprint, for example, in Cameo, I have a poll first. I would like to ask you to give me a break and drink a bit of water, and for you to maybe answer the question, do you recruit across borders? So this is, of course, a European webinar, and Anna, maybe you could help me launch this poll. I'd be very interested to kind of see if people today on the webinar do recruit across borders. So to get a sense there if people are actually looking for talent outside of their home market.
Okay, so the poll is already running. And once again, the question here is pretty straightforward. Do you recruit across borders? You've got yes, no, and also the possibility of don't know. I would be also curious to know how far across the border. So if any of you care to share that in the chat, please do. And let's see how we're doing with the results.
I know actually that we at Cameo, so we've really enjoyed. We were founded in the Netherlands, and originally, at that time, we said, okay, we don't want to be a Dutch company. We want to be an international company. So our first team, and currently we have more teams in more markets, but our first team would really already consist of a Spanish colleague, Canadian colleague, French colleague, to really kind of already create this international atmosphere. And I really think that our company has benefited from this because it creates talent should not just be sought after in your immediate surroundings, but actually can come from a bit further. And it creates I think a very interesting and attractive working environment for most people.
I agree.
We enjoy this every day.
You can definitely enrich your workforce that way to bring in different perspectives and different backgrounds.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so let's maybe close the poll right now and see what we've got here. And we've got 62% saying yes, they do recruit across borders, 31% saying no, and then 8% are not sure.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. That's really useful, and thank you everyone for participating in the poll. It's really, I think, a good indication. Of course, this being the European HR software recruiting day, so I would expect this audience to really have a European focus anyway. But I think actually what we see is that more and more people, more and more employers, they have to look across borders. I would say even if you don't have to look across borders, just do it. It will enthuse your team. Of course, not for every role always, but if you have the possibility and if it does make sense for that specific role, I can definitely recommend it. It will create a richer culture. Of course, for some employers, there's not even a choice. You have to get people from further out because the people are just not there in your local market. So if you look at Cameo, for example, so actually we were Dutch founded. So our head office currently is in The Hague, the Netherlands, which is smack in the middle between Amsterdam and Rotterdam. And we also have a team in Cologne. We have partner offices in New York and Singapore, where actually we work with partners to support clients on the ground there. But basically, our software is global by instance. And I think that's also kind of how the world's being connected today. This is a graphical representation of our interview usage in 2017, where you can see intensity levels of different regions where our software is being used. But the great thing obviously here is in today's connected world, where software is in the cloud, where we can use internet, we have all the communication tools at our disposal. It's so easy to connect to people anywhere in the world, on social media, in a business setting, but also, of course, in a recruiting setting and attracting talent. So, yeah, I'd say the trend currently is actually that we're have a more global market. To give an example here, one of our clients, WPP, this is actually, they publish a new logo placeholder. And in this case, it's a paprika or pepper every year. WPP is one of our clients. Actually, it's been a long-term client of ours. And WPP maybe that company most of you would not know. It's a global advertising conglomerate, and they basically have lots of brands as part of their conglomerate. You may know these brands. They're in advertising like companies like Group M, Ogilvy, Hill & Knowlton, Gray, and WPP runs a global program every year on the Cameo platform, which is a fellowship program. So basically, they have this traineeship that they publicize globally, and anyone anywhere in the world that's graduating and wants to start a career in advertising can have an opportunity to start a career in advertising with a leader in advertising, which is WPP. So, of course, yeah, a very interesting opportunity for most people who graduated and really want to start a career in advertising. So lots of applications from all over the world. The interesting fact about being global is that in this case, the hiring manager sits in Perth, Australia. So that person is responsible for the program. The recruiters sit in London and New York. So WPP is co-headquartered. So basically, you already have a team of people dealing with these applications in Perth, London, and New York. And you have candidates coming from all over the world. Super interesting. And why can you do this? Because you have a virtual and a video power process. So what WPP does every year, they have up to 2,000 applicants, and they come to 13 hires from those 2,000 applicants each year. So they need to have a very strong process in place. It's embedded into their applicant tracking system. And for example, this is their question from last year. If you could invite any 3 people, living or dead, to join you for dinner, who would you invite and why? Of course, for most companies, this could be a really weird question. But for WPP, they're looking for more essay-like answers, and they are looking for creativity, and this allows them to recognize creativity. And what we can do with our speech-to-text analysis and our Express Analytics functionality, so the fully automated personality insights, we can actually see what are the predictors of a great hire for WPP. And we've identified consensuousness, being well organized, artistic interest, and need for structure as the predictors of a great hire for WPP, based on all the data we have been able to process. And these 3 criteria have a 95% reliability or predictability or higher to predict the right candidate for WPP. Just want to quickly point out at the end of the webinar, if you are thinking about video recruiting, please make sure to think about or make sure that you are compliant to GDPR. So at the end of May 25th, really the deadline is gone. So you will have had 2 years to prepare for GDPR, and make sure that you get consent of candidates, that your tooling actually allows you to get explicit consent, that it's fit for purpose, so that you have automatic deletion routines in your program and software, and you really have a very well-documented process on data security, data breaches, etc. So if you're using video, use it a safe way. Do not ask candidates to just send you a video through email, because this will get you into trouble. Use a specialized tooling for it. And in summary, I'd say that for video recruiting, we've mentioned 5 reasons. If you focus on a reduced time to hire, improve quality of hire, and increase predictability, if those are the things that you'd like to achieve, then video recruiting could be something for you. And with that, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. I hope it's been useful, interesting, and insightful for everyone. And I would like to thank you for your attention, and maybe close up with one last question, if that's possible, Anna.
Okay, let's see. We've got a minute, so let me quickly ask one that I saw, and the question is it possible to get, for example, your SuccessFactors competency catalog and import it into Cameo?
Yes, absolutely. So what we see is that many of our clients actually already have a competency framework. They will just upload their competency framework into the Cameo platform and start using it from there to build new interview projects. Yes, absolutely.
Cool. All right. I've purposefully asked this question because I assumed that it might be a yes or no answer with a little bit of extra detail. And unfortunately, I don't think we can get to the other questions, but definitely I encourage our audience to reach out to Walter and with any remaining questions. And of course, this presentation will be a part of the materials that are posted on the event page, as well as the recording, so you will be able to revisit anything that you may need to.
And thanks, Anna. And maybe as a final note, we do have an integration with SuccessFactors. Let me make one plug, and we're part of their Partner Edge program, so you can even use Cameo inside SuccessFactors. Sorry for that final plug, but I just wanted to make my answer complete there.
Good.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. And again, thank you for the whole presentation. Hope to see you soon. Actually, we will be seeing you soon in our German language webco in July, and hopefully soon after that too.
Have a great day. All right. Thank you, Anna. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And we will go on to our next presentation, which will start in just a second here. Our next speaker is here, and his name is Michael Lazik, and he will be talking about artificial intelligence, and specifically how it can be used to reduce recruiting bias. So you can already see Michael's screen here. And I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that Michael works at Smart Recruiters. He is the VP of the German-speaking regions, so Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And he will also introduce himself a little bit, tell us what Smart Recruiters does, and I'm very looking forward to this topic of AI.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Thanks for introducing me and having me, and I hope you can hear me well. So if you just give me a quick sign that you can hear me and can see my screen, then I can continue from here.
Yes, your sound is great, and we can see your screen.
Perfect. Happy that my headphones work. Great to hear. Good piece of technology. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining and taking part in this short discussion of the use of artificial intelligence in recruiting. And I'm quite excited to tackle one of the most significant advances in recruiting technology and strategy of recent times. And I'm working in that space, talent acquisition software, now for almost 15 years. So I've seen a bit across and along the way, but I think we're looking at one of the major changes in the market and in the behavior of recruiters and the process as such. And we at Smart Recruiters, I think we're at the forefront of that innovation, and I'm happy to share our thoughts and view on the market with you and facilitate a discussion then later on. Yeah? From an agenda perspective, we'll talk about the challenges the recruiting function is facing today. We'll talk about how AI can be an answer to those challenges and which practical examples of AI in recruiting we are seeing today already. In that line, we'll also go into how the recruiting function will evolve and be changed by that enactment of technology and what dangers AI can pose, particularly in regards to compliance. And as I mentioned at the end of the session, I've reserved some time for questions. I could imagine that there are some, being it a relatively new and hotly discussed topic. So please hold your fire till the end of the session, but communicate your questions to Anna, and I'm happy to pick them up as much as time allows. So looking at the statement, we all know this, but it's still worth calling out here. Finding the right employees is essential to your business success. In nowadays world, we don't talk about the shortage of financials. We don't talk about the shortage of resources as such, but we definitely talk about the shortage of talent. And in fact, who you hire determines who you are as an organization. In fact, you are who you hire. People shape your business, and finding the right people for key positions is the most important influencing factor for your success. So it's also a cost factor. Look at the cost per hire, look at the cost of bad hires, and look at the cost of vacant positions in your organization, which translates into loss of productivity, overtime for colleagues, and potentially the inability to open new areas of business, which might be crucial for your competitive edge in a new market, new territory, or new business area. However, your competitors are looking for the same people in the same markets. And today you compete with far more and quite different companies than just a few years ago, as whole industries go through transformational processes and have to recruit completely new professions to support their growth into new areas of business, to move towards higher levels of digitalization and fuel their growth. All of a sudden, and we've seen this in reality, automotive suppliers compete with software vendors or even retail companies for the same key talent, because they all move in the same direction, have to change their business, transform what they are doing, and need new people, new professions to actually achieve their new goals. So how do you differentiate yourself from them? Well, There are actually a lot of ways to do that. We know about those. Create an employer brand that talent will flock towards, offer an amazing candidate experience, attract top talent, offer great training and development opportunities. But also, and this will seem really basic to you, identify the right people to hire. Obviously, you might say, but it's actually not quite as self-evident as this statement might suggest. Because hiring someone is not automatically the same as filling a vacancy. If you pick the wrong person, and we all know this can happen for all sorts of reasons, your vacancy is going to open very soon again. So you have spent weeks or months searching for the right person, you hire him or her, then half a year later, after initial onboarding process, you have to go through the same process all over again. The cost of a bad hire is hard to calculate, and every company will consider it differently. But just thinking about the money spent on advertising your job, the time you and the hiring manager spend in researching, screening, interviewing, onboarding that person, even by the use of video interviews as Cameo just presented, you still invest a lot of time and money. You invest in new higher salary for that fraction of time that person works for you, and potentially you also have to invest into a severance package. Then it gives you a good idea on how significant that number can be. And we saw the estimate of almost $250,000 to replace someone who was initially a bad hire. And it all boils down to choosing the right talent in the first place. So how do you identify the right talent amongst millions of candidates? Finding great talent isn't easy. In fact, the majority of talent acquisition professionals say that screening candidates from a large talent pool is about the hardest part of recruiting. Screening stacks of resumes and mining a talent database to pinpoint top candidates is a manual, time-consuming process and thus prone to errors. So what to do? And even when the right talent is readily available somewhere in your database organization, you still have to uncover them first. So your top of funnel recruiting activities are incredibly time-consuming. And as a result, recruiters are overwhelmed because they're working through mundane administrative tasks, manual processes, and have only limited visibility for reaching available talent, which means they're more process-focused instead of candidate-focused. Look at the statistics that Cameo just presented. Do you want to become a telemarketer or rather a therapist? So looking at it from that perspective, and given the limited amount of time they have, recruiters consequently rely on the subjective eye test screen of a resume, spending an average of just about 6 seconds to review a document that took hours to create from a candidate, and when they make a selection decision to move a candidate forward. Not fair, not balanced, and definitely not the most efficient way to do so. One of my colleagues recently participated in an HR bar camp, which I believe is an event most of you will know. So she led a session on this very topic, raising the issue of resume screening with participants. Most members of the audience immediately agreed with her that 6 seconds is not enough time to make an informed decision on an applicant. Some even wondered if it's worth to look at the resume at all. And I know that some companies actually started to ignore resumes, but as long as you can't take the proper amount of time to screen, yeah, we'll all agree that's not the right way to approach it. But that leads us back to the problem of volume. There's no way to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even more with each application when you receive 300 for every opening. So what to do? These split-second decisions are neither supported by data nor free from cognitive bias. No one wants to claim that recruiters are actively discriminating against candidates in their choices or whom to move forward. But few companies can say that they have the data to prove that their hiring decisions are free from bias. And it's not just the recruiters making decisions. It's hiring managers from all cultures and backgrounds who are chiming in on the recruiting process, possibly bringing in their own bias, making it even harder for the right candidates to be discovered. I recently spoke to the diversity team of a large telco company, and they mentioned their challenge to hire female software engineers as part of their overall strive for more diversity in the organization. And this not because of lack of applicants, but because of a widespread hiring manager attitude that prefers a male candidate to complement a predominantly male team. So let's discuss later how I can possibly help here. So do you really know that you're moving the most qualified talent forward, not just listening to that good old gut feeling? Do you really know? I think we can agree that even though organizations have increasing amounts of data at their disposal to try to identify the best fit for each position, the reality is that simply doesn't happen in the way needed. The recruiting process is still stuck in the past, based on individual, not standardized, and often not comprehensive resumes, and potentially biased interviewers' opinions, and companies are suffering because of that. And here comes the catch. Even though we are talking about people, machines seem to be able to help not only source but also screen applicants. In fact, studies have shown that humans are notoriously bad at picking the right applicant, and the meta-analysis quoted in this slide illustrated that algorithms can outperform humans experts on hiring. And it's interesting to see that Cameo actually used the same sample. So it's a widespread knowledge and research in the market. We know that gut feeling, as good as we consider it to be, is always beaten by the algorithm, is always beaten by big data. And that might be painful, but we have to accept this as reality and draw our conclusions from that. Which brings us to the discussion of how can AI be applied in the recruiting process to make recruiting decisions smarter. Sorry for that. Let's start with a quick decision and definition. What is artificial intelligence? Depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers to this question. Here's the answer from our own product director, Hessam Lavi, who is responsible for Smart Recruiter's AI offering. Hessam states, artificial intelligence makes it possible for machines to learn from experience, using data and algorithms to mimic human decision-making and problem-solving. In turn, AI for recruiting is the application of artificial intelligence, such as the learning or problem-solving that a computer can do, to the recruitment function. Let's have a look at what these applications of artificial intelligence can look like in a second. And don't forget, this is all based on large amounts of data, which are gathered from various sources and hence provide a much wider and deeper set of information. An AI uses internal data like recruitment data from a SaaS platform, employee qualification data that might reside in your HRS, market data from external databases, and contextual information gathered from research and analysis. All these data points can be combined by the algorithm to let the AI detect the patterns that help to predict how a candidate might fit to a role. And this information can be sifted and structured by the AI in a fraction of the 6 seconds a recruiter might be able to invest into a quick and dirty CV review. Bear that in mind when you look at CVs. So, how can AI actually impact or ideally improve recruiters' lives today? Recruiting is a high-touch activity that involves stakeholders across the whole organization. Many of the processes recruiters engage in every day are manual. Screening resumes is still the most time-consuming part of recruiting, especially when 75 to 88% of the resumes received for a role are not really a good match. Screening resumes and shortlisting candidates to interview is estimated to take at least 23 hours of recruiters' time for a single hire. Here's an example from our own user data that we have gathered through the Smart Recruiters platform. In Smart Recruiters, the typical recruiter of an enterprise-level organization spends 3 hours every week pressing the next button to scan the CV of the next candidate. That's a frightening amount of time to spend on an activity that can easily be outsourced to a machine. And it sounds pretty boring, doesn't it? Especially for high-growth organizations, the time-consuming nature of recruiting processes poses a serious challenge. With hiring volume on the rise, but recruitment teams at the same size, it's becoming increasingly hard to deliver. And here's where AI for recruiting comes in. It can reduce the manual burden on the recruiter by automating highly repetitive tasks, such as screening resumes or scheduling interviews with candidates, delivering immediate value. Recruiters can spend more time on actually engaging with candidates, thus helping recruiters emphasize the connection aspect of their jobs, actually having a dialogue, a meaningful dialogue with candidates. Faster screening and scheduling processes help to speed up the time to hire, a factor critically, especially for higher value positions where talent is hard to find and even harder to hire. Essentially, AI can help recruiters move from fast forwarding resumes to fast tracking top candidates and engaging with them in a deeper or more meaningful way. So, the second critical role AI can play in recruitment is by improving effectiveness. What does that mean? It means not just to act faster, but to make better hiring decisions that will help the company identify and hire the best talent, as well as predict how likely this talent is going to stay in the company. Coming back to the cost of a bad hire, where estimates range between 1.5 times the annual salary of an employee or an average of $250,000 per bad hire, there's a quick ROI to calculate. So look at a model organization. Reducing the number of new hires that leave in the first year from 40 to 30% would mean that with an average salary of, let's say, €80,000 and 100 hires per year, to keep the numbers simple here, you can save astonishingly €1.2 million on the bottom line per year. That's a very simple math. Your CFO will love you, and your recruiting assistant is financed for a couple of years already with this saving. To add to this, think about being able to better discover internal talent and filling your vacancies from within. Longer tenure in the company, lower attrition, and reduction of recruitment marketing spend comes easily on top of above calculation. So there's actually a very good business case to make. Let's put this all together. For us at Smart Recruiters, there are three main tasks that machines can take over today that are currently being handled by recruiters in a mainly manual fashion. First, automate. By taking over repetitive, mundane tasks that are currently being handled manually, machines can free up recruiter schedules. So a good example for this is, for example, a startup like JobPal that builds custom-made chatbots for recruiting purposes. The chatbot is embedded into the website. You have potentially already seen one of those for marketing purposes in the past, and can help navigate candidates to information that is relevant to them, ask screening questions, direct candidates to information, help them to fit to job openings on the website, or even schedule interviews. All of these interactions are relatively low impact if you consider them one by one, but on the whole create a better candidate experience and free up the time of recruiters who would otherwise be fielding those questions through email and have a lot of workload, which is highly repetitive and unproductive. Secondly, analyze. Organizations are collecting huge amounts of data through various data entry points in the whole recruiting process. Collecting that data, organizing it, and analyzing it takes a lot of skill on the part of human analysts, but can also be taken over pretty easily by machines. The final interpretation of the data would still lie with the humans operating the machines. Our own recruiting assistant is one of the tools that are primarily concerned with making sense of your data. After reading your job adverts, a recruiting assistant screens your internal databases and talent pools for candidates that might match your job description, uncovering hidden gems that were right under your nose but didn't surface so far. Literally every larger organization I'm currently speaking to faces challenges to promote internal talent as they lack the tools to discover the skills their employees have and match them with the positions they want to fill. Likewise, recruiting assistant screens incoming CVs and matches them to the job, making it easy to identify high-quality talent and to eliminate the manual work of screening huge amounts of resumes. In addition, recruiting assistant does not only take into consideration any factors that might be subject to bias, such as gender, nationality, age, etc., and so eliminates the unconscious human bias that might otherwise have prevented those candidates from being considered. And as the AI uses contextual matching, it also helps those candidates that would be a great fit for the role, but unfortunately are bad CV writers. Those profiles are out there, and you have trouble to identify them, right? The AI will, for example, know that a candidate who worked for a former employee called Supersoft in a role as a software engineer will have specific skills in, let's say, Python, even if it's not written down in the resume. And why? Because it will already have scanned multiple resumes from other Supersoft software engineers and will have recognized the context, much easier than a recruiter will ever be able to do that. And the third point I want to make is prediction. Based on past behavior and data, machines can predict the most likely outcomes of processes like the hiring process. For example, Textio is a startup that has made some headlines recently by introducing an AI assistant that helps you write better job adverts. Based on how job adverts have performed in the past, the assistant analyzes the job advert, gives suggestions where a certain phrase might be more likely to attract one gender than the other, and hence should be omitted for diversity reasons, or might not yield the best results in terms of application volume and quality. The tool learns from all job adverts that it scans, and thus helps create better predictions on how the job ads will perform. As you can see, there are some pretty powerful tools out there today that can help recruiters automate manual tasks and free up valuable time. So why wait? What is keeping organizations from making use of this technology today? there are really two main factors to why organizations are hesitating to fully embrace AI. One of them is a technical issue. Companies have the data, but they lack partners to tap into it. Data overload. Organizations are swamped by tools for gathering new data points on candidates and employees, resumes, assessments, video interviews, just to name a few. The data coming out of those systems is often incomplete and scattered across different platforms. It is valuable, but hard to integrate, so running predictive analytics on these data sets is, to say the least, challenging. Second one, integrations. Organizations struggle to bring together all these sources of data, determine the factors that are driving hiring success, and apply these insights to existing workflows. There are tools here and there for specific data points in the process, but no encompassing solution. As far as we know, actually, SmartRecruiters is the only ATS right now on the market offering a fully native AI solution that can be turned on by the switch of a button that accesses all the data available in the platform. Usually, AI tools still require extensive implementation cycles, using valuable resources and consuming time. The other side of this issue, same importance, revolves around compliance. Especially for global companies that hire within the EU or hire EU citizens, the GDPR has put the discussion around data privacy front and center in a lot of talent acquisition teams. First of all, whenever your company is processing any kind of personal data, either by itself or through a third-party vendor, the processing activity will have to be made transparent. So your privacy policy has to state clearly what data you're collecting and what are you using it for. And it has to be easily understandable for anyone, even to those who do not have a legal background or degree. Obviously, with AI, that poses a challenge. It is really difficult to provide an explanation for an outcome when that outcome is based on an AI algorithm, as the logic behind the machine reasoning may not be expressible in human terms. However, any organization that wants to keep in their candidates' goodwill and comply with data privacy laws needs to address this or vet their technology providers carefully. Secondly, there are really valid concerns about automated decision-making. The GDPR expressly forbids any data subjects, meaning your candidates, to be subject to automated decision-making. This is why SmartRecruiter's recruiting assistant pre-screens candidates, but will never automatically hire or reject a candidate based on the outcome of an algorithm. And this also, in a way, protects recruiters from being fully replaced by AI. Just follow that thought. And neither should it. Hiring decisions are fundamentally people decisions. Leaving your gut feeling out of the screening process helps qualified candidates to be assessed fairly. But at a certain point, there's always going to be the human element to the decision, often called the cultural fit. Can I work with this person? Do their values line up with our company values? Do they listen to the right music? Is it really a must-have requirement for this candidate to be fluent in 3 languages, or did their assessment blow me away so that I would rather have them on the job and let them class to acquire the necessary hard skills? We just saw in the recent presentation from Cameo that soft skills become more and more evident to find the right people to fill a job, but still that essential level of hard skills that AI-based matching can surface for you easily and faster will exactly free you to have the time to assess the soft skills of a candidate more properly and find the right people that really contribute to your company's success and help you to achieve hiring success. These questions can overall only be answered by humans. That's why machines will never replace recruiters, but they will be able to provide good help. So that brings me to my final point. What do we think about the evolution of the recruitment function in this new automated world that we have just discussed? I've heard a lot of concerns from recruiters about their jobs essentially being outsourced to machines. What role could a recruiter reasonably play in a company when the searching, screening, and sorting of candidates can be done by a robot? I actually had this conversation recently with our own head of people at SmartRecruiters, Sarah Wilson, and what she said really stuck with me. Inserting AI into the recruiting process is a huge win for talent acquisition professionals. Instead of spending their time on repetitive administrative tasks, recruiters can finally focus on the part of the job that matters most, connecting the right candidates with the right opportunities. Coming from a real experienced TA professional, I think that's a pretty powerful statement. And I think she's absolutely right. There's a human element to recruiting that can never be done by a machine. Freeing up that time that recruiters usually spend screening unqualified resumes and clicking the next button will allow them to focus on the task that can only be done by humans, which is creating connections, focusing on the candidate experience, and realizing their potential as a critical business driver, spending more time on strategic issues and long-term planning. With technology speeding up and potentially improving the hiring process, recruiters will become talent advisors to the business, using their market knowledge to steer hiring decisions. Or, as we saw recently in the other presentations, they will become more the therapist than the telemarketer, which is job saving and improving the quality, at least. AIs will help recruiters to become less process-oriented and more candidate-focused. It will help recruiters to get rid of time-consuming manual tasks and keep them from important tasks, ultimately enabling them to become less of a cost center and more of a business function. Moreover, eliminating bias from the pre-selection process will help organizations to identify the right talent faster, and will help to give opportunities to talent that might otherwise be overlooked, making it easier to hire the right people while effortlessly reaching the diversity goals. And now, let's come to your questions. So Anna, if you have gathered any questions at this point in time, please share them with me, and I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion here.
All right, so we do have some questions here, and I believe actually that one of them was answered, but I will just make sure that I got that answer here. So the first question is, how are AI technologies positioned toward the GDPR guidelines, and how is data privacy ensured? So you talked a little bit about that it has to be humans who make the final decision, but maybe the second part of the question, how is data privacy ensured? Maybe we can discuss that.
Yeah, that will be definitely a lengthy discussion, but I mean, everything you do when you process candidate data is subject to your data privacy declaration that encompasses the use of artificial intelligence. Whilst you will not be able to describe the algorithm as such, because most people will most likely not understand this, including me, you can definitely set up, let's say, the work ethics of how you approach a screening process through an AI, describing that the process will be fair, non-biased, that you will consider certain elements that you gather from either the CV or external databases, but not consider others like gender, age, ethnicity, and so forth, and that will comply with your data privacy regulations and requirements.
All right, thank you. Let's see if we've got more.
I hope so.
Here's a good one. Can we adopt the algorithm to our specific decision criteria?
Absolutely not. I mean, the whole purpose of using algorithms and AI in recruiting is to remove the bias that either a particular individual or organization has. Of course, the AI will learn over time about your successful hires, and that will, I wouldn't say tweak, but teach the algorithm to support you even better. But we, and I guess every other provider of AI-based mechanisms, will never allow direct interference with the algorithm.
All right. And I'll just remind the audience members here, as long as we're running with the questions, you may ask them in the chat at the bottom. And I see another one here that says that we have diversity challenges in our organization. Could an AI-based approach help us with that?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, directly a follow-up on what I just said, as the algorithm will not look into gender specifics, age, ethnicity, and so forth. It will put forward the best candidate based on the overall qualification, based on the contextual matching and so forth. And this will, even for organizations that have a certain tendency to recruit in a biased way, make it much harder to disqualify such a candidate and put forward a candidate who better suits from, let's say, a gender perspective or ethnicity perspective, and then this way actually help to remove diversity problematics.
Okay, and this is where I guess my own question kind of jumps in. What if the applicants are initially not attracted to this company because of maybe bad PR about diversity. Maybe AI can't help solve that problem. I'm not sure.
The AI will not directly help to solve that problem, but as you will use the algorithm to actually source candidates, not only in a passive way in your internal database or in your inflowing applications, but also by assessing external databases, you might still get into contact with those candidates, but then it's still the recruiter's job. Now we're talking about the human element, to build that bridge to the candidate, to have that meaningful conversation and convince, most likely then her, if we're talking about diversity challenges, to join the team and become a member that helps to shape the future of the company and turn it to a better. So there's an indirect way, at least, for the AI.
Okay, thank you. And let's see. Oh, good one. Which languages does the algorithm support when it analyzes a CV?
So talking about our recruiting assistant, we currently support English. We running first tests in German and French and have seen good results so far, but we'll take another 3 to 6 months until we release further languages with the AI. It's all based on learning and experience, so there's a learning curve even for the algorithm, and we're currently making great progress on that one.
All right. Thank you. I think, yeah, with English, quite a bit is covered, but of course,
I would agree to that.
And one last one that I see right now. What does the Workers' Council think about AI usage in a screening process?
That will be a lengthy discussion. So we started with that discussion and making good progress. And actually, the story for the Workers' Council is twofold. One of them is a lot of companies that don't use AI or any kind of internal talent sourcing struggle to identify internal talent and have only rudimentary internal mobility programs. With the use of AI, you don't have to rely on the often very incomplete skill documentation of your employees, but you can, through means of contextual matching and so forth, you can identify internal talent much better and put them forward and give them more access to actually chances to evolve within the organization. That's one clear benefit for the Workers' Council. The other is removing the bias. So these two elements will definitely also be able to convince a Workers' Council to have a closer look at AI-based matching.
All right, thank you for that too. And it seems to be that we don't have further questions about, about the content. I will just ask you one last question. Did you talk to the other speakers to agree to have this kind of connected content? It seems like you all talk to each other.
No, actually not, at least not in my my specific situation, but I attended part of the conference and saw that we actually start with the same information, which I think makes it even more valid. So yeah, I'm kind of happy to see that we are aligned in what we draw our conclusions from. But there was no initial discussion or alignment on the content so far.
I'm amazed that this has happened again. It happened again at the recent WebCo on April 4th, where it seemed like one webinar just kind of grew into the other and they were all connected. Of course, with some disagreements in the approaches, which would be great for a panel discussion. But now it really worked as one big whole.
I hope
thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. And as all participants can see my contact details here, if there are any further questions, more than happy to answer them. We'll, of course, also run another webinar where we show some practical use of the recruiting assistant and bot technologies and other things. So watch this space for further announcements. And as I said, thanks for having me and happy to receive further questions going down the line.
All right, thank you. And I think that from here, I will take over and just kind of wrap up the web conference. And I would like to remind you that Also, smart recruiters will be in our German web conferences, as they have been before. Um, the next one, I believe, is coming on July 5th, where Smart Recruiters is presenting. So just keep track of our schedule of web conferences, and I'm sure you'll find some great content on there. And of course, I will post all of this information on the event page and email you all about it so that you can have it handy to revisit and also to reach out to today's speakers. And in a kind of wrap up here, I'll say once again, thank you all for being here. And asking your questions, making your comments. It really helps to make these web conferences feel more lively, to really feel that engagement, as opposed to having speakers who just give their speech or lecture and the rest of us sit there like students. It's great to have that engagement. And we had about 80 registrants in this web conference. And of course, I hope that you will be inviting your colleagues to join our future web conferences. Keep in touch. We will let you know when the next one is coming up. And I also want to thank our sponsors and our partners. Among them, you can see a few of them here. We've got Job Clipper, and GoToWebinar, the Space Coach Academy, Business Leads, TextKernel, Hirebase, Indeed, and Crosswater as our many valuable partners here. And I will also share this link where you can see our upcoming web conferences in my email to you. And I hope that I will be seeing you soon at one of our next events. Thank you once again, and have a great day.